Hey everyone, per your requests, I'm starting Soul Land 5, The Rebirth of Tang San. Chapters 1001 through 1020 of the previous episode. The three dominant races, dragons, phoenixes, and behemoths, maintained a fragile balance of power, all hampered by low reproductive rates. The death of the Crystal Demon Emperor shattered this status quo, turning Crystal City into a contested prize. The Celestial Fox Demon Emperor orchestrated a matchmaking tournament between Mei Gongzi of the Peacock clan and the behemoth heir, Jin Onggua, aiming to unify their influence and secure the demon continent's future. However, Mei Gongzi vehemently rejected the alliance, prioritizing her loyalty to Tang San. Her steadfast refusal and the revelation of her human heritage heightened the ancestral court's political hostility. Despite this, Tang San empowers Mei Gongzi to dominate the elite competition, where she secures her position as the new lord of Kali City. Tang San simultaneously advances his own power, successfully merging the Golden Mammoth and Behemoth bloodlines into a transcendent form. With the ancestral tree awakened, Tang San orchestrates the migration of humans to islands in the endless blue sea, laying the groundwork for a future human nation independent of demon and nymph oppression. Amidst this, Mei Gongzi battles her way to the quarterfinals, where she must face the brutal savage Tiger King. If you're able to, please support me on PayPal to help me stay active. Thank you. Now let's get back to the story of Soul Land 5, The Rebirth of Tang San audio series. Chapter 1021. Both combatants were great demon kings, with the savage Tiger King being a veteran at the pinnacle of that realm. And while Big Cat had yet to reach the pinnacle, he was definitely among the strong within the great demon kings. For beings of their level, unleashing their full power made it no easy task to change moves midway through. Once anyone tried to change their move, they would instantly fall into disadvantage. In the savage Tiger King's vocabulary, the word fear simply did not exist. His opponent suddenly risking it all was beyond his expectations, but at this moment he didn't hesitate at all. His twin Demon King swords burst with even stronger dark golden light, still cleaving toward Big Cat. At the same time his burly body twisted, and a bizarre scene unfolded. As Big Cat's slash came at him, his chest seemed to cave inward and then rebounded fiercely, accompanied by a burst of light. He was actually using his chest to forcibly take Big Cat's sweeping strike. Not only that, but the shoes he was wearing scattered apart, releasing a dark golden glow that became a barrier around his body. Clearly, they were some kind of single-use defensive item. The twin Demon King swords tore through Big Cat's protective lion-tiger golden force like rotted wood, directly striking his shoulder and head. Big Cat's head was chopped in half, and his shoulder was split open down to the middle of his chest. Meanwhile, Big Cat's full-force sweeping god-slaying sword ruthlessly slashed upward, also breaking through the dark golden glow rising from Hong Hong's feet and striking his rebounding chest. The explosive power of the lion-tiger golden force showed itself perfectly in that instant. Amid the sharp sound of breaking bones, the savage Tiger King's chest was cleaved open. If not for the surging dark golden light pouring forth like tides, he would have been chopped in two like a pig carcass. And even so, half of his chest was split open in what was clearly a lethal wound. Blood spurted wildly, broken bones and torn flesh flying in every direction. The spectators held their breath. Even with the previous matches still fresh in their mind, no one had expected this lion-tiger clash to be so brutal. It was only their second collision, yet both sides were grievously wounded. The savage Tiger King was not yet dead, however. His twin Demon King swords hacked at the god-slaying sword, sending it and Big Cat's mangled body flying. He then took out a fruit from his storage ring and quickly stuffed it in his mouth. Seeing the fruit, Tang San frowned. It was a blue gold fruit. Yes, what Hong Hong had eaten was a blue gold fruit. It was far from the quality of those Tang San had just sold, but even so, it was definitely produced by a 10th order blue gold tree, and this made it a veritable panacea. At once, rich life energy flowed out from him like a waterfall. Blue golden light sealed the gaping wound in his chest almost instantly, and the bleeding was stanched. The wound also began healing rapidly. Driving the Demon King swords into the stone tile of the platform, the savage Tiger King used them as crutches to prop himself up. His eyes were filled with fierce determination. Just then, over in the distance, Big Cat's brutally mangled body seemed to thin out, as if it was slowly vanishing. Then the phantom of an intact big cat appeared out of thin air right next to it. Slowly, the phantom became more and more solid, while the broken body turned illusory. Though he was pale as a sheet of paper, a rather mild side effect of having successfully courted death, Big Cat was alive once more. The substitute lotus seed. The savage Tiger King growled through clenched teeth. Yes, what Big Cat had used at that moment was the substitute lotus seed, a gift from Tang San. When Tang San gave it to him, he said he'd bought it from the Blue Gold Tree clan and had Big Cat request money from the Golden Lion clan for it. This way, if Big Cat used it, he could claim he had bought it from the Blue Gold Tree clan. The substitute lotus seed wasn't omnipotent. For example, Tang San had not lied to Ning Qinan at all. If it was used against Qiu Zishuan's world-sundering sword, it would likely fail, as that sword destroyed not just the body but the divine consciousness. The seed could restore one's body even if it was entirely obliterated, but that was on the premise that the divine consciousness was intact. But this situation was ideal for it. Though Big Cat's head was shattered, he had already shifted his divine consciousness and activated the lotus seed at the instant of impact. The Demon King sword suppression caused the target's emotions to be disturbed, but its effect ultimately targeted bloodline power. The divine consciousness was not particularly impacted. Moreover, the savage Tiger King had immediately drawn back his swords to defend against the exploding Lion-Tiger Golden Force, allowing Big Cat's substitution to succeed perfectly. Reaching out, Big Cat called the god-slaying sword back to his hand, eyes blazing as he faced the savage Tiger King. The nature-defying effect of the substitute lotus seed wasn't without cost. Though the revival had been successful, Big Cat's state was far from stable. His life force was all over the place and his power was halved. But compared to Hong Hong, he was in much better shape. The blue gold fruit that the savage Tiger King had just consumed was, after all, just a 10th order one. It could ultimately heal his injuries, yes, but ultimately was not now. He was simply too strong for the fruit to instantly heal him. Without question, in terms of trading injury for injury, Big Cat had the upper hand. But though he'd succeeded, the domain effect of the twin Demon King swords hadn't vanished. Its level was actually even beyond that of the substitute lotus seed. So Big Cat remained cloaked in negative emotions, and his body highly unstable. You bastard, you had a substitute lotus seed. You think this means you can beat me? The savage Tiger King's body turned somewhat transparent, just like Big Cat's corpse. It was as if he'd become a ghost himself. This was his unique bloodline ability. Netherworld reflection. His mutated bloodline gave him the ability to connect with the netherworld. His true body would be temporarily shifted there, leaving a phantom in its stead the real world. In this state, no physical, spiritual, or energy attacks could harm him. He could also use it to move rapidly, practically teleporting within a set range. This was a supreme survival ability. It was this that let him repeatedly challenge strong foes and live to boast about it. And it was for this reason that the White Tiger Demon Emperor hadn't killed him. Even for a battle-hardened emperor, it would have been quite difficult to kill Hong Hong while he was using this ability. Right now, he wouldn't teleport away. That would mean losing the match. But with Netherworld reflection, he could stay invulnerable for a time, while he let his body absorb the blue gold fruit's energy and heal. He was certain that once he recovered 70 or 80%, defeating Big Cat would be no issue. Meanwhile, Big Cat would be unable to recover completely, considering that he was still impacted by the Demon King domain. Once Hong Hong used Netherworld reflection, however, his domain faded. Big Cat forced his god-killing domain to rise, using his killing intent to counter the domain's suppression. As he stared at the phantom before him, watching the savage Tiger King's wound rapidly knit together, Big Cat suddenly smiled. I have waited for this day for so long. I've thought countless times about how I could defeat you. It's true that, in terms of sheer power, I'm not your match. In terms of experience, I'm not your match either. I don't have enough years behind me, and the gap between us is enormous. But today you've made a grave mistake. Did you really think that when I risked my life to strike at you with that sword, it was just to drag you down with me? As he spoke, white golden flames suddenly ignited in Big Cat's eyes. The aura of his entire body changed with it, and strange and twisted halos appeared around him, especially concentrated around his head. The god-slaying sword in his hand suddenly turned white, Like a white torch that blazed with pure light, Big Cat slowly raised the god-slaying sword in his hand. The god-slaying sword is the bane of divine consciousness. Even if you flee to the ends of the world, and even if you cross into another world, your divine consciousness will not be spared. From the day he chose to join the Golden Lion clan, Big Cat had regarded the Savage Tiger King as his shadow opponent. All along, while training diligently under the guidance of the Golden Lion King, he had studied everything about the Savage Tiger King in depth. Thus, while the Savage Tiger King did not know much about Big Cat had thoroughly researched everything about the Savage Tiger King. What abilities his domain possessed, the characteristics of his Demon King swords, how great his true strength could be, and indeed, the invincible state of his netherworld reflection. All of this had been thoroughly studied. Today, when truly facing this great enemy of the Golden Lion clan, the pressure the opponent exerted on Big Cat was immense, but it was all within his expectations. He was far younger and less experienced than his opponent, but that was only in comparison. He was no greenhouse flower. After all those years in the great beast arena of Kali City, how many life-or-death struggles had he survived? How could someone with 100 deathmatch victories be ordinary? When facing the Savage Tiger King, Big Cat had set his expectations for the opponent even higher. This was a habit developed in the great beast arena. He would rather overestimate an opponent than underestimate them. Tactics had to change at any moment according to the opponent's movements. To counter this Savage Tiger King, Big Cat had prepared no fewer than 10 different plans before the match, ready to adapt to any situation. But at the core, it was all about finding a way to severely wound the opponent with the god-slaying sword. In the past, when the previous generation's Golden Lion King faced the Savage Tiger King, he had been suppressed by the opponent's Demon King domain from start to finish, unable to bring out his full strength, and ultimately died with regret. Thus, what the Savage Tiger King sensed from the god-slaying sword was powerful killing intent, sharpness, and strength, but not its true power. The god-slaying sword, purely in terms of its quality as a divine item, was not at all inferior to the Demon King twin swords. It simply didn't reveal its effects as directly as the twin swords did. But precisely because of this, when it was properly activated, the power it could unleash was even more terrifying. The disadvantage of the god-slaying sword was that it needed to absorb a large amount of the opponent's blood essence before it could use its actual power. The advantage was that once this condition was fulfilled, its actual power could be exerted directly upon the opponent's divine consciousness, like a kind of curse. How did one truly slay a god, without any possibility of failure? By destroying their divine consciousness. And this was precisely this sword's ability. As Big Cat raised the god-slaying sword, the Savage Tiger King, still in his netherworld reflection state, suddenly felt an indescribable terror arise from the depths of his heart. At his level of cultivation, he naturally wouldn't think the opponent was just trying to scare him. The intuition of a peak great demon king with such a wealth of experience couldn't be wrong. Without a moment's hesitation, he ended his netherworld reflection. Even though his chest injury was nowhere near full recovery, he immediately chose to return. Netherworld reflection isolated him from the opponent's attacks, but it also prevented his own attacks from reaching the opponent, leaving him with no way to deal with Big Cat. At that moment, as he returned, he prepared to unleash the power of his Demon King swords at once. But when he looked at Big Cat, what he saw on Big Cat's face was neither surprise nor fear, but mockery. A blinding golden light burst forth from the god-slaying sword. Within that soaring golden light, a phantom figure struggled desperately. It was none other than the Savage Tiger King. The Savage Tiger King let out a miserable scream, and the Demon King swords clattered to the ground. The Demon King domain, which had just been reactivated half a second before, collapsed instantly. He clutched his head in pain and collapsed to the ground. Something that looked like golden smoke started wafting out of his head. Big Cat's eyes shone brightly. He shouted, "I offer my blood as a sacrifice to the god-slaying sword." He then suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood that radiated a distinct white golden glow, spraying it directly onto the blade. It was clear this was his most precious blood essence, and the moment it touched the blade, the god-slaying sword turned a searing white golden color. Behind the Savage Tiger King, a massive sword projection appeared, accompanied by overwhelming killing intent. "Nu!" the Savage Tiger King roared, but in the next instant, his voice was abruptly cut off. The sword projection fell upon him, and his head simply exploded. Forget about the blue gold fruit. Even with something like the substitute lotus seed, there was no way he could revive. His sea of divine consciousness was completely and utterly annihilated. This was the true power of the god-slaying sword. Big Cat staggered, barely managing to prop himself up with his sword, but his eyes were filled with excitement and relief. His connection to the Golden Lion clan had started for this purpose, and the clan had poured all the resources it had into him without hesitation. And now that debt had been repaid. The god-slaying sword purchase for one single coin now truly belonged to him. Victory for Big Cat from the Golden Lion clan. The sun-born nymph emperor descended from the sky. He had not even made a move to stop Big Cat's final attack just now. This was partly because Big Cat acted too swiftly, and at the time the Savage Tiger King seemed still capable of counterattacking. As for the other reason, he would obviously not admit to it, but it played at least as important a role. Although the Savage Tiger King wasn't the White Tiger City Lord, his status in the tiger race was second only to the White Tiger Demon Emperor. And after all, he was a demon. Big Cat, your divine consciousness and blood essence are severely depleted. Will you continue into the semi-finals? The sun-born nymph emperor released a light that enveloped Big Cat, slightly tending to his injuries. Big Cat grinned, spat out another mouthful of blood, then shook his head. Thank you for the assistance, Your Majesty, but I will not. I withdraw. His true goal had been achieved, so what more was there to pursue? All his trump cards had been expended in this battle. He was far from being an emperor candidate just now, and he held no stakes in the matchmaking tournament either. What point was there in continuing? With the Savage Tiger King dead and Big Cat withdrawing, only 8 contestants would proceed into the semi-finals, as things currently stood. And among the seeded contestants, there was now one less. The Savage Tiger King's downfall was mainly the result of underestimating Big Cat. In his eyes, Big Cat was indeed nothing more than a slightly larger cat. His cultivation was higher than Big Cat's, his experience greater, and his trump cards at least as good. If, at that time, he had not relied on the blue gold fruit to take Big Cat's strike head-on but instead responded cautiously, the difference in their strength would have left Big Cat with no chance. If he had simply been patient, Big Cat's plans would all have come to nothing. The Savage Tiger King could have simply prolonged the fight until his superior cultivation and powerful domain wore Big Cat down. But due to his confidence in the effects of the blue gold fruit and the protection of his netherworld reflection, he had decided to end it quickly, and fell right into Big Cat's trap. Life and death often hinge on a single decision. Standing at the entrance of the rest area, Tang San watched as Big Cat, unsteady on his feet, walked down from the arena, and a faint smile appeared on his face. He had succeeded. He had taken a tremendous responsibility, and he had fulfilled it perfectly. After this battle, Big Cat's prestige among the lion and tiger races would undoubtedly rise to a new level. In the future, under his leadership, the Lion-Tiger clan was sure to become a formidable force, and he himself was bound to become an emperor in the future. Meanwhile, one less seeded competitor was certainly good news for the remaining contestants. In the first round robin, there would be plenty of room for tactical arrangements. At least losing one match wouldn't mean elimination. Moreover, one of the opponents who had advanced was from the Blue Gold Tree clan. As far as the other contestants were concerned, each one of them would only face 6 real threats, and there were only 5 seeds remaining in the male bracket. Tang San didn't return to the rest area. He had no way of finding out who he would face in the upcoming semifinals, and he had no intention of observing for now. After all, the match list would be announced tonight anyway. So, after Big Cat's match ended, he quietly left with the elders of the Blue Gold Tree clan and returned to the White Tiger Hotel to rest. By evening, Tang San had already received word that with today's matches concluded, all 5 remaining seeded contestants had been lucky. They hadn't drawn each other, and there had been no dramatic turns of the tables either, so they had all advanced smoothly. Together with Ning Chunen, Tang San, and another non-seeded contestant, they accounted for the top 8. These 8 contestants would now compete in a round-robin format in the semifinals. There were 9 female contestants and 8 male contestants participating in the semifinals. During this stage, both male and female contestants would compete on the same day, since there would only be a total of 8 matches per day. Furthermore, there would be no rest days during the semi-finals. After one day's matches concluded, the next day's matches would begin immediately. So, it would be a grave mistake to think that luck didn't matter anymore in the round robin. If one encountered powerful opponents too early, tough choices would have to be made. Otherwise, once injured, the subsequent matches would become extremely difficult. The format of the round robin was also announced. A victory would earn 2 points and a loss earned none. There would be no draws. If a match ended in a tie, the referee would decide which contestant had the advantage, and that would be counted as a win. Or, if both sides ended up too injured to continue, they would be eliminated directly from the semifinals. Therefore, unlike the elimination stage, in the semifinals, the first priority for everyone was to protect themselves. Only by maintaining their condition could they endure through all the matches and earn the points they deserved. Among the 8 male contestants, Tang San saw several familiar faces. Ning Chenin needed no mention, and Radiant Dragon King Suan Yu was also among them. From Crystal City, besides Suan Yu, another contestant had entered the top 8. In addition, there were also Jin Ongwa, the Lord of Sky-Splitting City, the Lord of Black Dragon City and successor of the Tenebrous Demon Emperor, and a top Great Demon King from the Immortal Flame Phoenix clan. Dragons alone had 3 representatives. This showed the formidable foundation of this major race. On the nymph side, only Scorching King Nan Kameng had made it into the semifinals. Ning Chinen could be considered half demon and half nymph. In short, the Solstice Empire's male contestants had suffered a major defeat. There were 5.5 demon contestants and only 2.5 nymph contestants remaining on the male side. And that was with Big Cat voluntarily withdrawing. Otherwise, the Empyrean Dominion would have ended up with 6.5 contestants. It seemed that the nymph side was in a bit of a pinch. The situation was entirely different on the female side. The nymphs had 6 contestants advanced to the semifinals, including a great demon king of the Netherman Flower clan. On the demon side, there were only 3, including Mei Gongzi and Lan Maqian of the Behemoth clan. The nymphs held the advantage here. Comparing both sides, things appeared more or less evenly matched for now. After the elimination stage, there was a day of rest. Then the semifinals would begin. For Tang San, the elimination stage hadn't been much of a worry. For the matches he took part in, he had his plans and arrangements. But the semifinals were different, because Mei Gongzi would now be competing. Although the round robin was relatively less dangerous than the elimination stage, as the saying goes, concern breeds confusion. Of course, Mei Gongzi's foundation was extremely deep, and he believed that with her strength, there shouldn't be any major problems. But even so, how could he not feel anxious? Still, he didn't seek her out, nor did he try to contact her. At such a time, he absolutely couldn't risk exposing himself. Now, these 17 contestants in the semifinals were the focus of attention for all the emperors. A single slip could give him away, and since he could not afford to reveal his true strength, he had to be extremely careful. The day of rest passed quickly. When Tang San saw Mei Gongzi again, it was already time for the semifinals to begin. When Tang San arrived at the arena, he happened to see Mei Gongzi and her party entering the rest area ahead of him. All he saw was her back. His gaze lingered on her unconsciously for a moment longer, but just then a familiar voice reached his ears. "Looks like clan leader Jean really is here for the matchmaking tournament. Haha, how truly charming." Without even looking, Tang San knew who was speaking. "Brother Ning, in today's draw, who are you hoping to face?" "Nin Chenin Strag. Who do you think? I've been telling you for days, I've always hoped to draw you." For those who had advanced to the semi-finals, drawing Tang San was certainly seen as a favorable lot. He appeared to be the weakest by far, so defeating him would cost the least energy, leaving more strength for the subsequent matches. At the start of the round robin, preserving one's strength was crucial, since this would be a grueling 7-day marathon. Apart from Jean Miaolin, everyone here was no slouch, and in the later matches they might well have to fight with everything they had for points. To make it through to the end, tactical planning was a must. Ning Chanen and the powerhouses of his clan had run through multiple permutations and laid out all kinds of tactical arrangements. Actually, in spite of his declarations, It was not true that the earlier he encountered Tang San, the better. In fact, it would not be good to meet Tang San in the first match. Fighting him in the third or fourth round would mean an extra day's rest, which was ideal. Tang San smiled slightly. Then let's hope you get your wish fulfilled. I wonder who'll get to squeeze this soft persimmon today.
Ning Qianin shrugged again.
You can't call yourself a soft persimmon anymore. You've already made it to the semi-finals. If you're a soft persimmon, what would the other eliminated contestants think? Tang San still smiled.
Pure luck.
I've just been blessed by fortune. Indeed, Ning Qianen's clan had analyzed Tang San's matches, and they found that luck had played a significant role. In fact, he had even consulted with the Adamant Nymph clan's powerhouses about the fall of the Adamant Nymph Emperor. Jean Miaolin had indeed challenged the Adamant Nymph Emperor, and they had indeed fought to the death. That much was clear. But as to how the fight had proceeded, that was anybody's guess. The Adamant Nymph powerhouses could sense the manifestation of the ancestral tree, so they were certain that it was the ancestral tree's power that had defeated and killed the Adamant Nymph Emperor. Even if someone now told Ning Qianen that it was Tang San himself who had slain an emperor, he probably wouldn't believe it. With the draw time approaching, Tang San simply stayed outside rather than going back to his pavilion. The waiting area for the contestants was quite empty at the moment. Most other city lords were resting in their own pavilions. The Behemoth clan had also had excellent results here, with both Lan Maqian and Jinongua advancing. In fact, apart from the dragon race, they were the only ones with more than one contestant. By contrast, the Phoenix race had fared rather poorly, with only one male contestant making it through. In the eyes of the spectators, the most perilous stage, the elimination stage, was over. But all the semi-finalists knew that the true competition was only just beginning. Aside from Mei Gongzi, every other contestant who had made it into the semi-finals had fought their way here. Moreover, winning 3 consecutive matches hadn't been as easy for them as it had been for Tang San. Most had relied purely on their own formidable strength to enter the semi-finals. Therefore, any opponent in the semi-finals would only be stronger, and every battle would be a hard one. Strategic and tactical planning would be all the more critical. As usual, the Celestial Fox Demon Emperor stood on the mountainside, conducting the draw. The elimination stage is over. We will now begin the semi-finals. The semi-finals will follow a round-robin format, and the final rankings will be based on points. The top 3 male and female contestants will enter the final championship round. Now we will start with the draw for the first day. Male contestants, please get ready for your draw. Tang San and Ning Qianen clamped their mouths shut. When they heard the announcement, all the other contestants emerged, males and females alike. Out of the corner of his eye, Tang San caught sight of Mei Gongzi stepping out of her own pavilion. Today she wore a white mid-length dress, the hem falling just below her knees and revealing jade-like calves. The cinched waist perfectly outlined her graceful curves. Her peerless face was still hidden beneath a veil. Today marked the first time that the grand prize of this matchmaking tournament would truly take part. Although she had been the champion of the Ancestral Court Elite Tournament, the battle for the throne was on an entirely different level. While no one underestimated her like they underestimated poor Jean Miaolin, few believed she could make it to the end. Aside from Tang San, only the Undying Demon Emperor and White Tiger Demon Emperor had some sense of Mei Gongzi's true strength. Even the Crystal Phoenix Demon Emperor, her own father, didn't fully grasp how powerful his daughter really was. Mei Gongzi didn't look toward the other pavilions. Instead, she gazed upward at the sky, quietly awaiting the draw. Once the male contestants drew, it would be the female contestants' turn. The familiar white light sphere appeared in the sky once more. As before, Tang San moved without hesitation and grabbed a number at once. Ning Qianen was just a beat slower, also seizing a number. Clan leader Jean, the pairing for the round robin is the same as for the elimination rounds, consecutive numbers. Let's see if fate brought us together. What number did you get? Ning Qianen asked with a grin. Tang San opened his palm, revealing a token marked with the number 3. Ning Qianen looked at his own token, then opened his hand toward Tang San with a look of regret.
Damn.
I drew number 5. We'll have to wait until the 3rd round to meet. Tang San's first round opponent would be number 4. The second round opponent would depend on wins and losses. If he lost, He'd face the loser between numbers 1 and 2. In the third round, he was likely to encounter Ning Chenen. Tang San said, "What a pity I didn't get to meet you this time. But giving out points is only a matter of time. There's no such thing as luck in the semifinals." Seeing his helpless expression, Ning Chenen couldn't help but feel a faint unease. It was not because luck played no part here, and his attention on Tang San was not just because Tang San seemed like easy prey. The Blue Gold Tree clan had slain the Adamant Nymph Emperor, who had not only been Ning Chenen's blood relative, but also an ally of the Golden Mammoth clan, that had dealt a heavy blow to the development of both the Golden Mammoth and Adamant Nymph clans. How could he not hate the Blue Gold Tree clan? At the same time, he also deeply feared the Ancestral Tree. If the Ancestral Tree's projection could kill the Adamant Nymph Emperor, what stopped it from killing him? Thus, in this tournament he had been focusing on Tang San, hoping to better understand the Blue Gold Tree clan. At the same time, of course, Ning Chenen also harbored his own ambitions in the battle for the throne. The male draw completed with no surprises. Next came the female contestants' draw, and all 9 drew their numbers in turn. The draw is complete. First pair of male contestants, please enter the arena. First pair of female contestants, please prepare, commanded the Celestial Fox Demon Emperor. Tang San and Ning Chenen turned their attention to the field. The semifinals were the point where observing every contestant became crucial. For one, it was only now that the really strong ones would start revealing some of their true abilities. Secondly, every one of them would eventually become another's opponent in a match. It was only a matter of how soon. 2 figures shot out simultaneously, landing in the arena, the male contestants number 1 and number 2. When Tang San saw who entered, his eyebrows couldn't help but lift slightly. A clash of titans right from the start. Radiant Dragon King Suan Yu versus Sky-Splitting City Lord Jin Ongwa. A showdown between the Dragon Race and the Behemoth clan. Both were absolute peak Great Demon Kings, and the strongest of their respective lineages. If they went all out, Ning Chenen gripped the railing before him, muttering, "Damn, now that is a heavyweight match." Both Suan Yu and Jin Ongwa were seeded contestants with high expectations, representing the pinnacle of power among the Dragon Race and the Behemoth clan. No one had expected them to face each other in the very first round. Clan leader Jin, who do you think will win this one? Ning Chenen asked Tang San. Tang San shrugged. If only they'd met in the elimination stage, that would have been a fight for the ages. Now, whoever wins doesn't matter to me. Ning Chenen sighed and shrugged. You've got a point. It really makes no difference to you at this stage. Tang San just smiled, unbothered by the subtle jab. By now, both powerhouses were facing off in the arena. The referee for this match appeared in the sky. It was none other than the Undying Demon Emperor. The Undying Demon Emperor's gaze was calm, betraying no emotion. Prepare. Suan Yu grasped at the air and a dragon spear appeared in his hand, radiating a soft golden glow. At the same time, a petite figure that looked like a human girl appeared above his shoulder. 6 transparent wings fluttered behind her as she hovered, and ripples of golden light spread outward. It was the light sprite he had paid a tremendous cost to acquire. Facing Jin Ongwa, Suan Yu held nothing back. Even his most precious asset was brought out without hesitation. With the light sprite's appearance, the light energy within the arena instantly grew denser and swirled around Suan Yu, to the point that his own body emitted a faint golden glow. Meanwhile, Jin Ongwa's massive frame stood firm, and he seemed completely unbothered. He was still in human form, but his skin had taken on a dark golden hue. His arms bulged, claws extended from the tips of his fingers, and his form grew even more robust. Neither of them had wanted to face such a powerful opponent in the first round, but since fate had paired them, they had to fight to win. A victory here would make the rest of the tournament much smoother. With that announcement, the Undying Demon Emperor shot into the sky, and the 2 mighty auras clashed instantly. Suan Yu raised his spear overhead and dazzling incandescent holy light surged forth, transforming the entire arena into a world of radiance. Torrents of intense light energy swept through everything. There was no denying that the light sprite's boost was tremendous. With it present, Suan Yu's radiance was unprecedentedly solid. The sheer power of that holy light was already brushing the threshold to the Emperor level. On the other side, pitch-black cracks appeared out of thin air. devouring the light energy that surged toward him. Jinongwa's eyes burned with focus as those cracks surrounded him. They appeared naturally and they did not cause any visible phenomena, but just based on the fluctuations of the light energy in the atmosphere, one could tell just how violent the energy around Jinongwa was. But Radiant Dragon King Suan Yu didn't give up his probing attack. Instead, he asked in a low voice, "Still want to fight?" Jinongwa's gaze flickered slightly, and the cracks around him shrank back a little. Then he replied with just 2 words. The holy light receded, and the cracks in space around Jinongwa vanished along with it. It's over just like that? From up in the air, the Undying Demon Emperor announced. Winner, Suan Yu of the Radiant Dragon Clan. 2 points awarded. Hey, hold the fuck up. What was that? The spectators erupted in a clamor. This had clearly been a clash between 2 titans, 2 of the strongest contestants, yet it had ended just like that? As the Lord of Sky-Splitting City and successor to an emperor, Jinongwa had chosen to surrender outright? Wasn't that too cowardly? Only those with true strength understood that the contest between them had already started from the very first instant. Suan Yu's light sprite had exceeded Jinongwa's expectations. Jinongwa had his own trump cards, of course, but this was only the first match of the semi-finals. If he revealed his hand right now, then even if he won, the exposure would make the rest of the tournament extremely difficult. More importantly, that was if he won. Jinongwa wasn't confident of victory, and this wasn't a match he absolutely had to win in the battle for the throne. Rather than risk a hard fight that could leave him heavily wounded and struggling in the rounds ahead, he chose to concede strategically. There was another deeper reason. They were both from demons. In terms of their nation's interests, it was better to ensure all the nymph contestants were dealt with during the round robin. That was the common interest of the Empyrean Dominion. So why would they choose to clash at this stage when they could duke it out later? There were 3 spots in the finals after all. At the same time, Jinongwa's concession also meant that Suan Yu was indeed the stronger one, and no one failed to take note of that.
Ninchen en Froneth.
Naturally, he had hoped Jinongwa would win. Jinongwa was his brother-in-law. If Jinongwa had defeated Suan Yu, it would have made Ning Chenen's own path much smoother. Now that Jinongwa had lost this match, it meant he would have to win more in the rounds ahead, perhaps even win every match from now on. Suan Yu was indeed powerful, which made Ning Chenen deeply wary. The instantaneous amplification from the light sprite could be felt even through the protective barrier surrounding the platform. As someone considered qualified to take over Crystal City, Suan Yu's strength had never been in doubt. And with the light sprite, he now had 1 foot in the Emperor's domain. That was why he showed no deference even to the tenebrous demon emperor. The dragon race was truly dominant this time. It was already insane to think they had 3 out of 8 male semi-finalists, and now with Jinongwa conceding to Suan Yu right out of the gate, the dragon race's prestige soared to new heights. Tang San nodded to himself. This result was not unexpected. His next opponent was thus going to be Jinongwa, and he wouldn't encounter Suan Yu until the final match of the round robin. The Celestial Fox Demon Emperor's voice rang out again. First pair of female contestants, take the platform. The female semifinals were about to begin. Tang San's pupils dilated almost immediately. He had sensed a familiar spatial fluctuation. Sure enough, in the next instant, silver light flashed in the arena, and Mei Gongzi gracefully appeared on the battlefield. Even though this tournament had started because of her, this was the first time she appeared on stage. Among the 9 female contestants, counting Mei Gongzi, there were 3 demon contestants and 6 nymphs. It was likely for her to get a nymph opponent. And indeed, before her appeared a great nymph king. This opponent was also strikingly beautiful. This was nothing unusual. Human aesthetics were appreciated everywhere, and any female nymph who had cultivated to this level and assumed human form would naturally ensure her appearance was stunning. When she appeared, her whole body glowed with shifting rainbow-colored brilliance. There was a strange, enchanting aura about her that naturally drew goodwill. Around her shimmered 7 colored ripples of illusory light, and her entire form seemed slightly ethereal. Silver light coiled around Mei Gongzi, while her opponent shone with dazzling multicolored radiance. In terms of appearance alone, this match far surpassed the earlier bout between Suan Yu and Jinongwa. Cheers erupted instantly from the crowd. Tang San hadn't paid any attention to the female matches before, so he hadn't realized that the female contests actually drew even more interest from the audience. But of course this made sense. After all, almost all the contestants were stunning beauties, especially on the nymph side, where every female great nymph king was otherworldly in her allure. Mei Gongxi's opponent turned out to be a powerful great nymph king from Rainbow Glaze City, a descendant of the Rainbow Glaze nymph emperor. This did, in fact, make her rather unusual. Mineral-type nymphs didn't really have or take a gender, and even if they did, they usually wore full-body armor at all times, so most people would have no idea anyway. More importantly, however, she was a seeded contestant. Mei Gongxi was facing a seed in her first match, but when Tang San saw who Mei Gongxi was up against, he couldn't help but smile. This should be easy enough. The referee was once again the Undying Demon Emperor, who acted as if he didn't even recognize Mei Gongxi. He landed between the two and nodded curtly. "Prepare." After saluting the referee, both Mei Gongxi and the Rainbow Glaze Great Nymph King released their bloodline power. Around Mei Gongxi, silver light distorted strangely as silver portals spread quietly outward, layer upon layer. The entire area around her was flooded with potent space energy. Meanwhile, the Rainbow Glaze Great Nymph King radiated 7-colored light that transformed into a fantastical multicolored domain. Rainbow Glaze Stone was famous for its myriad colors, and the Rainbow Glaze Nymph clan's innate ability was directly related: endless transformations. They wielded elemental power like many others, but not just one. Instead, their specialty was in the 5-phase cycle. They had earth as the primary element, but then gained equal control over wood, fire, metal, and water. The 5 phases cycled in mutual reinforcement and suppression, creating endless variations. One individually, Rainbow Glaze nymphs weren't the strongest, but they were the most versatile, and they were especially adept at large-scale attacks. As both released their innate abilities, the battlefield became a dazzling spectacle. Ningqian asked Tang San, "Who's your pick for this one?" Tang San smiled. "Of course, my future wife." Ningqian burst out laughing. "Future wife, huh? You really are here for the matchmaking tournament. How about this: if I win the throne, I won't take the other prize. I'll give her to you, how about that?" Tang San gave him a side glance. "Love has to be earned. I'll win her heart with sincerity." Ningqian laughed. "If every bit of your skin was as thick as your face, you'd be at least as tough as I am. But honestly, I'm not optimistic about your future wife in this match." That Rainbow Glaze Nymph King, Nanshiu, is the progeny of the Rainbow Glaze Nymph Emperor. She's been a great nymph king for many years, and her control over the elements is unmatched. She's among the strongest in the female group. Mei Gongxi may be a city lord and whatnot, but they have no emperor, and she hasn't been a great demon king for long. Strength-wise, she's definitely at a disadvantage. That's true, but there's also phase suppression. Ningqian tilted his head in confusion. Phase? What? Phase suppression. On the competition stage, the Undying Demon Emperor's voice rang out solemnly. "Begin!" The first match of the female semifinals commenced in an instant. Around Nanshiu, brilliant rainbow-colored light exploded forth almost immediately. At the core of this radiance was the power of the 5 phases: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water, interwoven with refracted multicolored brilliance, creating a dazzling, fantastical appearance. In a blink, she had merged into that rainbow glow. The 5 energies cycled rapidly, unleashing countless blades, giant trees, torrents of water, and fireballs that surged toward Mei Gongxi in overwhelming waves. The energy vortex spread swiftly, seeking to envelop the entire arena. This kind of wide-area assault was precisely what the Rainbow Glaze Nymph clan excelled at. Mei Gongxi stood still, but the space gates around her shifted rhythmically. Strange silver ripples flowed through the air as the opponent's attacks were absorbed into the nearest portal, where they vanished without a trace. Mei Gongxi's comprehension of space had long since risen to a new level. Her cultivation now rivaled that of the Peacock Great Demon King of old, at least from the standpoint of her Peacock Demon heritage, and with Tang San's past guidance using the Spacetime Lighthouse and her own keen intuition, her control over space was actually better than her father's had ever been. No matter how the elemental energies shifted, her answer was always the same. Open up and let them pass through. From the audience's perspective, it appeared as if wave after wave of brilliant elemental energy crashed toward Mei Gongzi, only to be swallowed up by her omnipresent space gates. Meanwhile, the rainbow-colored radiance continued to expand quietly, encircling Mei Gongzi from all directions. Nan Shuowei had been at the peak of the 11th Order for many years and her cultivation was above Mei Gongzi's, so she had the advantage in sheer magnitude of energy reserves. Yet Mei Gongzi showed not the slightest wavering. She continued to open space gates to block the onslaught. The spatial ripples grew ever stronger. Compared to the previous match, this one was far more thrilling, and the crowd watched in rapt delight. Nan Shuowei's strength was indeed formidable and oppressive. As time passed, the vortex created by her energy grew more and more forceful. The rainbow glow kept absorbing ambient elemental energy as it pressed inward, compressing Mei Gongzi's domain of space power. It was clear that the silver zone was shrinking, while the rainbow domain expanded. The advantage seemed obvious. "Your goddess seems to be in a bit of trouble," commented Ning Chen. Tang San merely shrugged. "It's not over yet. Don't jump to conclusions too soon," Ning Chen said. "At our level, once you suppress your opponent, they don't get a chance to turn it around, unless something really special happens. Nan Shuowei's been famous for a long time, and I bet she's spent decades in seclusion working on her elemental control. Space does counter her somewhat, sure, but their cultivation and combat experience are on different levels. Nan Shuowei hasn't even gone all out yet." Tang San didn't argue further, simply keeping his eyes fixed on the arena. Was Nan Shuowei holding back? Maybe, but was Mei Gongzi giving it her all? No one knew Mei Gongzi better than Tang San. He could see it clearly. She was using the pressure from her opponent to comprehend how space behaved under duress. In other words, she was using this battle to train herself. As expected of my wife. How confident. Meanwhile, on the platform, the energy of the two fighters' domains filled the space so completely that their figures were hard to see. The defensive barrier trembled under the intense energy waves. The rainbow light's advantage was clear. It steadily pushed the silver radiance back, causing Mei Gongzi's domain to shrink. The greatest advantage of the Rainbow Glaze Nymph clan's five-phase control lay in the cyclical generation of energy. Once the cycle was complete, it would absorb the surrounding energy and build up power on its own, often resulting in power surpassing the user's own cultivation level. They didn't fear drawn-out battles. If anything, the longer it lasted, the stronger their domain became. Mei Gongzi had to know this. As a serious contender, she had undoubtedly studied all major opponents in great detail. Yet she seemed content to passively block with space power, letting Nan Shuowei's domain grow stronger and denser. Why was that? What was she planning? This question burned in the minds of many watching experts, and even the mind of Nan Shuowei herself. She knew Mei Gongzi wouldn't be easy prey. A seated contestant, a city lord, a former champion of the Ancestral Court's elite competition, Mei Gongzi was certainly not inexperienced. So why was she allowing her domain to fully unfold? At the center of the arena, Mei Gongzi had closed her eyes, her hands forming intricate gestures. Space gates blossomed before her like petals, layering outward to block the five-phase force, all while sensing the mounting pressure. Looks like the pressure's growing, isn't it? A fine smile graced Mei Gongzi's face. Her hands circled before her, surreptitiously drawing the mysterious circles of heaven, not to dissolve the attack, but to draw the surrounding space forces into harmony. The overlapping space layers fused rapidly, forming a circular portal, black as ink at its heart but radiant with silver light at its edge. It looked as if the gateway to another world had suddenly opened before her. Nan Shuowei's assault paused briefly. Clearly, Mei Gongzi was shifting tactics, and her space energy was being reinforced. But this new portal, though clearly special, couldn't possibly overcome the five-phase domain. What is she trying to do? The next instant, Mei Gongzi gave her the answer. A strange silver light blossomed, and the entire sky seemed to darken for a moment. The massive circular portal expanded suddenly, and an unfamiliar force sliced into the five-phase domain. Nan Shuowei had been cautious, but in that instant she faltered. The disruption in her five-phase domain was immediate and bizarre, so swift she couldn't react. The fire energy within her domain was abruptly cut off and absorbed into Mei Gongzi's portal, vanishing as it closed. A chain reaction followed instantly. In the five-phase cycle, wood fuels fire, fire produces earth, earth gives birth to metal, and metal purifies water. But with fire gone, the buffer between wood and earth is no more, and wood restrains earth. The remaining four elements spiraled out of control and started clashing violently, causing the domain to ripple with elemental energy. It happened so fast that by the time it all registered in Nan Shuowei's brain, regaining control was impossible as the circle was closed and the five-phase cycle continued for so long. Nan Shuowei's domain had already surpassed the peak power of her cultivation. The pressure she exerted on Mei Gongzi was indeed immense, but who could have foreseen that at this very moment, the domain would suddenly collapse because 1/5 of it had been abruptly removed? And with its collapse came consequences Nan Shuowei could no longer control. The remaining four elements erupted chaotically. Though Nan Shuowei tried with all her might to restore fire to the cycle, it was far too little and too late. Thunderous explosions rumbled across the stage like peals of lightning. Mei Gongzi, meanwhile, seemed to have vanished into thin air. Only a silver phantom swayed gracefully on the stage, utterly unaffected by the destruction around it. She could use space control to avoid the residual blasts of the collapsing domain. But Nan Shuowei couldn't. All elemental energy was tied to her divine consciousness, and all she could do was struggle to regain control. Failing that, she had to bear the backlash of this terrifying elemental storm. The arena was left in ruins by the blast, and when the once dazzling five-colored light faded, Nan Shuowei was huddled in a corner. To avoid severe injury from the backlash, she had been forced to use a defensive divine item to shield herself. It barely saved her, but the treasure was now as good as ruined, at least in the short term. As for her five-phase domain, it had been entirely shattered. She touched the cracks in her skin, then looked across at Mei Gongzi, who stood ringed in silver light, as beautiful as ever. Complex emotions filled Nan Shuowei's eyes. Even now, she didn't understand how Mei Gongzi had done it. Her cultivation was clearly weaker, so how had she managed to break the five-phase domain? Meanwhile, around Mei Gongzi, space energy gathered rapidly. Silver ribbons drifted through the air as she began to dance gracefully. Stepping upon the void, moving with the celestial dance, the Peacock Demon Clan's secret art. In Nan Shuowei's eyes, those silver ribbons grew larger and larger, like the Milky Way spilling from the heavens. Everything felt strangely unreal, and she could no longer lock onto Mei Gongzi's figure. One after another, silver-black space rifts lashed out like whips toward Nan Shuowei. She knew she no longer had any chance. When her five-phase domain was broken, she had already lost. Unless she was willing to risk her life, there was no hope. And in a round-robin's first match, was that worth it? Besides, she couldn't shake the feeling that Mei Gongzi had not yet shown her full strength, that she still held something in reserve. This girl from the Peacock Demon Clan was stronger than anyone had imagined. She truly had the strength of a seated contestant, and her spatial power was the perfect counter to Nan Shuowei's abilities. Thus, before the rifts could strike, Nan Shuowei chose to surrender. I concede. The space power dissolved into the void, silver light drawing inward to heal the cracked space. Mei Gongzi nodded to her gracefully, calm and composed. The undying demon emperor descended, his expression blank as he declared, Mei Gongzi of the Peacock Demon Clan is victorious. 2 points awarded. Mei Gongzi bowed respectfully to him. Unable to contain herself, Nan Shuowei asked, was that star shift you used to break my five-phase domain? Your star shift can actually isolate a single element from my domain. That was what baffled her most. How could Mei Gongzi sever one single type of energy from the five-phase cycle that was so perfectly chained? Such precise control and so perfect application of power. How was it possible? And yet, Mei Gongzi had done it. Mei Gongzi nodded slightly, then shook her head without explaining. With a flicker of silver light, she teleported away, returning to her rest area. She certainly wasn't about to explain that she possessed the bloodline of the immortal Flame Phoenix lineage, and since she'd been working on it for a long time, her mastery over fire was nothing to scoff at. That, combined with Star Shift, had let her extract the fire energy from Nan Shuowei's domain. The tournament had only just begun. Whatever strength she could conceal, she would, until she had no other option. In the City Lord's rest area, Ning Qianen stared at Tang San in surprise. You really called it phase suppression, huh? Honestly, I didn't expect space power to be so overwhelming. A single element countered a complex mix? How did she do that? This city lord Mei is not to be underestimated. Tang San simply smiled and refrained from answering. Watching the match filled him with pride. Mei Gongxi's growth had surpassed even his expectations as a former god king. Her exquisite control of space, her deep comprehension, her mastery of star shift, her seamless use of immortal flame phoenix power, and her impeccable tactics all revealed that she had truly become a top-tier powerhouse. Yes, phase restraint had played a role. Mei Gongxi's tactics had caused Nan Shuowei's domain to collapse on its own and backfire on her. But to win against a seated opponent, without using the Azura sword and without even fully unleashing her celestial dance, was proof that her strength was not inferior to that of any main city's lord. This first appearance by Mei Gongxi had undoubtedly captured the crowd's attention. Among them were many who had cheered for her when she won the Ancestral Court Elite competition. Their cheers now shook the arena. Even the male contestants refocused. Up to now, their sights had been set on the emperor seats, but now they were made acutely aware of why this tournament had been initiated to begin with. If they could marry Mei Gongxi, they'd gain not just a city's resources, but a wife of incredible strength. The Empyrean Dominion's emperors nodded secretly. Even the Celestial Fox Demon Emperor hadn't seen how Mei Gongxi had used Star Shift to separate the fire element, so they had no idea about that, but her display had left them all pleased. The female contestants' side seemed clearly dominated by the nymphs, so if Mei Gongxi could beat some sense into them, it would be a welcome surprise. The White Tiger Demon Emperor, unable to hide his joy, grinned from ear to ear. Mei Gongxi was his granddaughter, and unlike the Undying Demon Emperor, he could boast about that in public. He had been in a good mood lately. He had never liked the savage Tiger King, who'd always coveted his position, but now that little pest was gone. His remaining focus in this tournament was on Mei Gongxi and Tang San. The first two matches of the round-robin had ended. Anyone with eyes could see that in this first round, most contestants were just probing their opponents. Faced with unfavorable matchups, neither Jinongwa nor Nan Shuowei had chosen to go all out. It was better to conserve strength for the battles ahead. This was the real tournament after all. Second pair of male contestants take the platform. The voice of the Celestial Fox Demon Emperor rang out once more. It's your turn, clan leader Jin. Ning Chunin glanced at Tang San with a hint of schadenfreude. He didn't yet know who Tang San's opponent would be, but among the 8 semi-finalists, apart from Tang San himself, all were powerhouses. Whoever Tang San faced, it wouldn't be pleasant. That Tang San had even made it through to the semifinals already annoyed Ning Chunin greatly. And now in the semifinals, Tang San was surely destined to be a walking and talking bag of free points. Tang San smiled. Indeed, it's my turn. Just watch. As he spoke, he rose lightly into the air, landing silently on the arena. His opponent, the contestant with the number 4 draw, also leapt out, landing across from him. Jinongwa and Suan Yu had already fought, and Ning Chunin was paired with someone else. But the Scorching King was the only proper nymph left apart from Tang San, so the chances were still higher that he'd draw a demon. And indeed this was the case. On the opposite side of the platform stood a dragon. 3 dragons had made it into the semi-finals. Suan Yu, the Tenebrous Demon Emperor's successor, and one more who had emerged from the elimination stage. Tang San had already eliminated Tang Mahuang, and the Ice Dragon King had been eliminated by someone else as well. The opponent before him was someone he had never met, or even seen at all, considering he hadn't paid any attention to the previous matches. Standing across from Tang San was a youth who appeared to be in his 20s and looked exactly like a human. He was not a seeded contestant. In fact, besides Tang San himself, this was the biggest dark horse of the tournament. Among the dragons, this contestant had never stood out before. Few had placed any hopes on him. Yet here he was, having fought his way through, defeating opponent after opponent. His name was Lu Fuyao, and he was an extremely rare specimen. A variant dragon with a metal attribute bloodline. Before this tournament, even the dragon race hadn't been aware that Lu Fuyao had become a great demon king. According to the dragon race's rules, any dragon with a mutated bloodline who reached the level of demon king with their mind intact would regain their freedom, and would no longer be bound to the clan. Lu Fuyao had done so and then vanished for a long time. No one knew where he'd gone. Thus, he was virtually unknown in dragon circles, and he had seemingly appeared out of nowhere for this tournament. But in the elimination rounds, he had displayed startling strength. In fact, it was Lu Fuyao himself who had eliminated the Ice Dragon King. At the time when two dragons faced off, everyone thought he'd lose in an instant, and the battle ended quickly indeed, except, with Lu Fuyao victorious, he had dominated from start to finish, giving the Ice Dragon King no chance to turn the tables. Moreover, unlike Tang San, he had used his own power from beginning to end, and as a result, he had become the tournament's dark horse. Drawing this opponent in the first round of the semifinals could hardly be called good luck for Tang San. But then again, no opponent in the semifinals was an easy one. The undying Demon Emperor's eyes shifted between the two for a moment, and then he said sternly, "Prepare." Lu Fuyao's dark golden eyes settled on Tang San. His skin took on a metallic sheen, and in the next instant, dark golden currents swirled around him, forming a vortex of metal energy that expanded rapidly. The air filled with the heavy, oppressive aura of metal. Lu Fuyao wasn't just strong in terms of bloodline power. His divine consciousness was formidable too. He excelled at overpowering opponents with brute strength and momentum, making him a fearsome presence. As Lu Fuyao began to gather his strength, Tang San looked up at the undying Demon Emperor. "Your Majesty, may I confirm something?" The undying Demon Emperor blinked. No contestant had addressed him before. "What is it?" Tang San said. "If I recall, the rules for the auction stated that any item purchased at the auction could be used in the battle for the throne, correct?" The undying Demon Emperor laughed. "Yes, you're right, Amethystan warrior. But you should know that, right? Isn't that how you've gotten so far?" Tang San's eyelid twitched. So even the undying Demon Emperor knew him by that nickname? "Amethystan warrior, good luck!" someone shouted from the stands. Instantly, the chant spread like wildfire, mingled with laughter. If Lu Fuyao was the tournament's dark horse, then Tang San was surely its oddball. 3 elimination matches won with a bag of cash. Who would believe it? And yet he'd done it. So what was he up to now? The audience wondered what item from the auction Tang San would pull out next. "Thank you, Your Majesty." Ignoring the crowd's cheers and jeers, Tang San pressed his hand to his brow. A golden rune flared before him. He had planned to use this in the elimination stage, but circumstances hadn't called for it. Now it was finally time. A roar erupted, wild, frenzied, shaking the heavens. A terrifying aura silenced the jeers in an instant. Lu Fuyao's face changed dramatically. The golden rune expanded into a massive array. From it emerged a colossal dragon over 30 meters from head to toe and covered in dark purple scales, hideous and ferocious. More roars followed, as if it was venting its madness. The protective barrier trembled under the sheer force of its presence. Lu Fuyao froze, and the dark golden vortex around him stalled. Even the undying Demon Emperor was stunned. He suddenly recalled that Tang San had indeed purchased this Scourge Dragon at the super auction. Was he actually going to use the Scourge Dragon? In the battle for the throne, no outside help was allowed. But the Scourge Dragon was different. As Tang San had just confirmed, auction items were permitted. No one had thought anyone would actually bring the Scourge Dragon onto the battlefield. The arena had limits, and everyone expected the Scourge Dragon to attack indiscriminately. Who would risk it? The caller could keep it asleep but not control its attacks. But now someone had done it. And as the spectators looked more closely, they noticed a far more chilling detail. The collar on the Scourge Dragon's neck was gone. The undying Demon Emperor frowned deeply. "Jean Miaolin, you'd better think carefully about the consequences. Don't end up in a situation you can't handle." Was this kid crazy? Just to win, he had actually unsealed the Scourge Dragon? But Tang San simply beamed, revealing his white teeth. "Your Majesty, everything is fine. Thank you for confirming that this is allowed, and don't worry. I won't end up in a situation I can't handle. Brother Nihil, will you please?" As he spoke, he waved at the Scourge Dragon. The seemingly furious Scourge Dragon fell silent, stepped forward, and to the astonishment of even the undying Demon Emperor, bent its massive savage head toward Tang San. Tang San rose lightly and landed atop Nihil's massive head. a faint smile playing at his lips as he looked across at Lu Fuyao. "All right, I'm ready." As he spoke, he reached out and summoned the radiant dragon spear he had purchased at the auction, gripping it in his hand. The spines on his back then turned into long vines and coiled around Nihil's neck, anchoring Tang San in place. And there he was, a true blue dragon knight. The spectators who had been mocking the amethystine warrior opened their eyes so wide it looked as if their eyeballs were about to fall out. This is allowed? What the fuck? Is that really the Scourge Dragon? The mad beast that destroys everything it touches? How is this possible? And did the amethystine warrior call it Nihil? Okay, fair, that sounds appropriate. In the Crystal City's VIP pavilion, Radiant Dragon King Suan Yu and the other dragon powerhouses had already rushed out, stunned by the sight before them. All things considered, the Scourge Dragon was a dragon. Sure, it was a puppet dragon that had lost its mind, and because even the dragon race had become unable to control it, it had been sold at auction for money. But even so, it was a dragon, and a mighty one at that. Who could have imagined someone would actually manage to keep it under control? The Scourge Dragon possessed strength nearly at the level of an emperor. If there were an open throne and it could survive its tribulation, it might even become an emperor. But there were clear signs that its tribulation would be of such titanic intensity that it would destroy it and everything around it. The dragon race didn't know exactly why this was the case, but they would never let it attempt such a tribulation. That was why it had been auctioned. It was nothing more than a volcano full of magma boiling under pressure, ready to explode. If this volcano could be sold for money, then that was for the best. No one thought someone would actually be able to put a lid on it. Yet the proof was right in front of them. The Scourge Dragon's aura was in no way weaker than it had been at the auction, so it had clearly not suffered anything untoward. And yet it had been tamed by a mere Blue Gold Tree clan leader? Unthinkable. The Undying Demon Emperor was just as shocked. But Tang San hadn't broken any rules, so all he could do was shrug and let things proceed. Shockingly, the one who had just interrupted the Undying Demon Emperor was Lu Fuyao. The Undying Demon Emperor frowned. "Will you people just let me do my job now? What's wrong with this match?" "What now?" he snapped. But the next moment he was shocked once more. Lu Fuyao burst into tears and dropped to his knees with a loud thud. "Big brother!" he cried toward Nihil. Nihil let out a low growl, destructive intent glinting in his eyes for a moment before softening as recognition dawned. Tang San quickly bathed Nihil's sea of consciousness in life energy, soothing his destructive impulse and allowing his clarity to return. Nihil crouched and gazed at Lu Fuyao with clear affection. He let out a low growl. It wasn't exactly articulate, but it was accompanied by a divine consciousness message that every being in the arena at the 10th order or above could perceive clearly. "Your little Fuyao?" Nihil rumbled. "Yes, big brother, it's me, your little Fuyao." Lu Fuyao sobbed. "Are you safe now? No longer in danger?" "Yes, ever since you helped me stop my metal energy from solidifying, I've been able to cultivate properly and advance quickly." "Big brother, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be with the dragon race?" Nihil's eyes flashed with destructive fury at the mention of the dragon race, and he let out a deafening roar that shook the air. "Don't provoke him," Tang San warned. "I can barely help suppress his destructive urges for now. I can't neutralize them entirely." "Understood." Lu Fuyao hastily agreed. Nihil turned to glare at the Crystal City rest area. As its gaze swept over the Dragon Kings, its annihilation energy surged. "Enough, don't stoop to their level," Tang San said gently, patting Nihil's head while channeling more life energy to soothe his mind. With another roar, Nihil managed to restrain his fury somewhat. Tang San looked at Lu Fuyao. "All right, now shall we begin?" Lu Fuyao froze, then shook his head rapidly. No, I can't fight my big brother. Without him, I would have died among the puppet dragons long ago." "Big brother? Did you call him Nihil? That's a good name. Anyway, he is my benefactor. I surrender. Clan leader Jean, may I visit you sometime?" "You're welcome anytime." Tang San laughed, patting Nihil's head again. Nihil's gaze softened as it grunted. "At least you know gratitude, kid." Tang San turned to the Undying Demon Emperor. "Your Majesty, you can announce it now, right?" The Undying Demon Emperor's lips twitched. For a moment he wondered. Was the power of those little purple coins truly limitless? Once again, Tang San had won, and for the second time it was without a fight. What was this? Not a single one of his matches had been normal. With Nihil's consent, Tang San returned him to the little pocket dimension a contracted beast slumbered in and landed lightly, exchanging a friendly nod with Lu Fuyao before returning to his pavilion. The amethystine warrior had claimed victory again. The crowd watched in disbelief. But whatever they felt, it didn't change the outcome. Jean Miaolin had won yet again, defeating another strong opponent without a fight. Before re-entering his rest area, Tang San flashed a grin at the stunned Ning Chenen. "Brother Ning, still hoping to draw me?" Ning Chenen stared at him and blurted out, "You sure are one of a kind." If Jean Miaolin had been a soft persimmon before, ripe and ready to be squished, then with the Scourge Dragon assisting him, he was now the one who could squish others. Nihil's power was close to the 12th order to begin with, and with Jean Miaolin's life energy it was like adding wings to a tiger or a dragon in this case. The amethystine warrior had truly risen. Outside the Blue Gold Tree Clan's pavilion, the elders waited for him. Even they were left speechless by what they had just witnessed. When Tang San had first purchased the Scourge Dragon Nihil, the Blue Gold Tree Clan elders had thought it would be of little use other than as a deterrent. How could such a destructive being ever be released unless there was no other option? But at this moment, seeing Nihil actually submit to Tang San and display such loyalty, their shock turned to unbridled joy. If the Blue Gold Tree Clan had such a terrifying guardian, who would dare to bully them? This was a supreme being among dragons. Lu Fuyao didn't even return to his rest area. He waited at the exit, beckoning to Tang San to signal that he would wait for him. "All right, everyone, calm down for now," Tang San soothed his excited elders. "Big brother, you're incredible. You really have a shot at winning the battle for the throne now." Jean Miaosin nearly leapt onto him in delight. The elders nodded. Things were completely different now from what they had been before the auction. With just Tang San, winning the battle for the throne would have been difficult. But with the Scourge Dragon at his side, everything had changed. Nihil's strength paired with Tang San's potent life energy could allow them to sweep through the competition. One of those 3 emperor seats now seemed within reach, and that meant the Blue Gold Tree Clan might produce an emperor once more. What could be more vital for their clan? Tang San smiled broadly and nodded slightly. "I'll do my best. Big brother, you're amazing, simply amazing." Jean Miaosin's blue cheeks flushed red with excitement. "Enough, today's matches are over. Let's go rest," Tang San said, motioning for the elders to follow as he led them from the rest area. Just as he had after the elimination rounds, Lu Fuyao met him at the exit, hurrying to greet him. "Clan leader Jean, if I may." Tang San smiled. "Brother Lu, let's talk back at my place." Just then a voice called out from behind. "Clan leader Jean, wait." Tang San turned to see Radiant Dragon King Suan Yu approaching with the other Dragon Kings of Crystal City. The urgency he felt could be read on his face from the other end of the continent. Seeing this, Tang San sighed and shook his head with a hint of exasperation. "Brother Su, you want to ask about the same things, right? Let's go together. We'll talk at my residence. There's no need to disrupt the matches." "All right." Suan Yu agreed immediately. The Scourge Dragon situation was simply too extraordinary. As the most likely candidate for the positions of Dragon Lord and Lord of Crystal City, Suan Yu had to understand it. This could mean something even more important than succeeding in this tournament. So Tang San and the Blue Gold Tree Elders, with the Dragon Kings in tow, left the arena and headed for the White Tiger Hotel. Meanwhile, in the Emperor's rest area, the Emperors conversed through divine consciousness. "What's the story with that Scourge Dragon?" the Tenebrous Demon Emperor couldn't help asking. "You're the only Dragon Emperor here. If you don't know, how would we?" The Soul Capturer Nymph Emperor snapped. The Sky-Splitting Demon Emperor said, "It's truly strange. That Jean Miaolin seems able to control the dragon's emotions." The Golden Mammoth Demon Emperor added, "What concerns me is that this undermines the fairness of the battle for the throne. This contest decides our new emperors. If it's 2 against 1, how is that fair?" The Sunborn Nymph Emperor said, "This was a rule the Ancestral Court established before the auction. Any auction item could be used in the tournament. That's why the auction drew so much attention. Are we going to embarrass ourselves now by going back on it?" The Blue Gold Tree clan may be weak, but they are the ruling clan of a main city nevertheless, and I don't think I need to remind you what they've been through in the recent years. For the dignity of the ancestral court, we can't change the rules now. And what if he does claim an emperor seat? That might actually benefit us all. I don't support changing the rules. He pondered for a moment, then continued, I know the dragon's situation actually. Jean Miaolin came to me to ask for my help subduing it. He uses his pure life energy to neutralize its destructive force. He told me that the way he sees it, the attribute of the Scourge Dragon's energy is actually annihilation, and that is the perfect antithesis of his life energy. By keeping that annihilation energy balanced with life energy, he can keep it sane. But he has to keep infusing it continuously, especially in battle, where its instincts are bound to take over, so it's not like he can let the dragon do its thing while he fights separately. It's not really 2 against 1. It's more like he's gained a powerful attack method. The Celestial Fox Demon Emperor, who had just returned from overseeing a match, said gravely, Let's discuss this properly after today's matches. But for now I agree with Sunborn. We set the rules, and if we go back on them we undermine our own authority. Also, I believe we'll see in the next round how well this combination really works. Jean Miaolin's next opponent is Jean Ongua. Indeed, Jean Ongua was considered stronger than Lu Fuyao to begin with, and more importantly, he had no special ties to the dragon. Even more importantly, after losing his first match, Jean Ongua would surely go all out. They were bound to find out right away how effective Tang San and Nihil really were. By now, Tang San had led Lu Fuyao and the Dragon Kings back to the White Tiger Hotel. He'd expected their urgency. The dragon race had many puppet dragons besides Nihil. If he could solve the fundamental problem of mutated dragon bloodlines, it would be a monumental boost for the clan. It thus came as no shock that Suan Yu was so eager. Once inside his grand suite, surrounded by Blue Gold Tree elders, Tang San gestured for everyone to sit. Facing him directly, the Dragon Kings fell silent for a moment. At last Lu Fuyao spoke up. Clan leader Jean, how is my elder brother? Tang San said. His condition is stable for now. I can suppress his destructive urges. What happens in the future I can't say. We have to take things one step at a time. The stronger I become, the more I can help him. As for our contract, don't worry. He is not my servant, let alone my slave. We're bound as equals, and he accepted me for that reason. If I ever manage to fully cure him, he'll be free to go at any time. Tang San was honest about his efforts and the contract. But in truth, a being like Nihil could never run free in a mortal plane. Tang San's life energy didn't just soothe the dragon's madness. More importantly, it gave Nihil the ability to control his annihilation energy. Life and annihilation were fundamental cosmic forces, and they could only exist as such in a divine realm. In a place, annihilation could only end in self-annihilation. It seemed rather counterintuitive, but the stronger Nihil's divine consciousness became, the more his energy would spiral out of control, and without Tang San, his death was inevitable. From the moment he'd acquired the dragon, Tang San had already been considering future courses of action. When the time came for him to leave this world, he would most likely take Nihil with him. The way Tang San saw things now, this was the only way to save him. All the Dragon King's gazes focused intently on Tang San. Lu Fuyao was about to speak, but Radiant Dragon King Suan Yu gently raised a hand to stop him. Clan leader Jean, we do not want to put undue pressure on you, but this matter is of great importance to our dragon race, Suan Yu said solemnly. The other Dragon Kings nodded, their expressions tinged with gravitas. Please speak, Brother Su. Though Tang San already had a good sense of what they wanted to say, he showed his willingness to listen. Suan Yu sighed. This concerns a matter long kept within our clan, and I ask that you keep it in confidence, clan leader Jean. Tang San nodded. Of course. Suan Yu took a deep breath. It's long been known that our dragon race, like the Phoenix race and the Behemoth clan, has always stood among the most powerful lineages. And we all face the same challenge, reproduction. For any race, the ability to bear offspring is of utmost importance. It is the foundation of a race's prosperity and continuation. But perhaps because we were born too powerful, reproduction has become exceedingly difficult for us. The birth of a single pure-blooded descendant can take decades, even centuries, and some of these descendants don't survive infancy. Among the three races, we dragons have it worse, and then there's the phoenix race. The behemoths fare slightly better. To solve this crisis threatening our future, our race has invested a tremendous amount of resources into studying our bloodlines, hoping to improve our chances of reproduction. Even if we don't manage to actually increase our numbers, we want to at least secure our race's survival. As Suan Yu spoke, Tang San pondered silently. If the dragon race ever solved its reproductive issues, if it multiplied like humans, wouldn't this world reach the point of self-destruction? A race as gifted as the dragons, with no limits on its numbers. What a terrifying thought. That was the reason our bloodline research began. Later, we also began to explore union with other races, hoping mixed bloodlines might improve fertility. That did in fact work quite well, and that's how many of the lesser dragon breeds came to be. But hybrids aren't true dragons, and their bloodline power is invariably lower than their parents' bloodline power. In other words, this path failed us, so we returned our focus to our own kind. But during this research, we inevitably stumbled upon a number of mutations. As you well know, most mutated bloodlines aren't anything special, but that's not the case with us. Our race's strength means that most mutations tend to be beneficial. When such descendants prove stable, we let them live freely as any other dragon. Our most famous example, of course, is someone you should know very well. Our late Dragon Lord and the greatest being of the ancestral court for 3,000 years, the Crystal Demon Emperor. Her Majesty's bloodline was a successful mutation. She was the pride of our clan. But for every success like the Crystal Demon Emperor, we've faced dozens of failures too. You see, mutations usually do increase bloodline power and physical strength, but that improvement does not extend to the spirit. It's the opposite, actually. These mutations can wreak havoc on the spirit and consciousness, and the more powerful the mutation, the greater the risk of instability. That's how some of our kin, despite their strength, have fallen to madness. We've had no choice but to control them as we did the Scourge Dragon, to prevent catastrophe. No one can understand the pain they are going through. And no one can understand the pain we suffer from having to shackle our own kin. Clan Leader Jean, seeing you grant the Scourge Dragon clarity today, even temporarily we see hope. If your methods could aid our other afflicted kin, you would be our clan's greatest benefactor. Forgive our eagerness, but we had to come and ask. Whatever you require, if it's within the dragon race's power, we will give it. Seeing Suan Yu's heartfelt plea, Tang San nodded slightly. He could feel Suan Yu's sincerity. The young dragon was not lying, putting up a performance, or even embellishing things for the sake of earning sympathy. Tang San's divine consciousness could hardly be at a higher level, and he would have detected such things instantly. But Suan Yu was genuinely doing this solely for the sake of his kin, and not with any personal profit in mind. No wonder he had been able to win the respect of the dragon race, stand against the tenebrous demon emperor, and even be acknowledged by Crystalline. He had the makings of not just a great warrior but a true leader. Tang San replied, "Brother Su, I understand your concerns completely. As for whether I can help, I must be honest. I don't know. The Scourge Dragon's case was special. It just so happens that the attribute of my energy perfectly counteracts the attribute of his energy, which allows me to keep it in balance and stabilize his condition. And even then, I only managed with the Sunborn Nymph Emperor's aid to stabilize it temporarily. You've surely studied his bloodline closely, and you must be under the impression that his bloodline carries some kind of destructive attribute, but that's not entirely correct. The actual attribute of his energy is annihilation. Annihilation stands opposite to creation, in other words, life. But that does not mean it is inherently evil. On the contrary, annihilation has its place in the natural balance of the universe. Without it, endless creation inevitably results in disaster. I'm sure you are aware of places like the Tainted Yellow Sea. They are a plague to all life, and annihilation is needed precisely to ensure that such plagues are entirely obliterated. The issue is that annihilation energy is so high level that even a dragon's body can barely contain it. In fact, even a dragon's body would eventually fail to contain it. That's why the Scourge Dragon's fundamental problem ran so deep, beyond the dragon race's control. Or was it? As Tang San spoke, he noticed a flicker of awkwardness in Suan Yu's expression, the faint shame on some of the Dragon King's faces, and the cold sneer on Lu Fuyao's lips. Tang San had touched on a key issue. The dragon race hadn't auctioned Nihil because he couldn't be controlled at all. With effort, they could have kept him alive and contained, although he would have eventually succumbed to his own energy. But knowing he was near death, the dragon race saw the auction as a chance to trade him for wealth. Now, seeing that Tang San was able to stabilize him, they realized how valuable he could have been, and they regretted letting him go. Su Enyu sighed, his tone candid. You are right, and I have personally opposed many decisions taken within our race. I fought hard against selling the Scourge Dragon, and these Dragon Kings can attest to that. But the ones with the final say in these cases are our elders and emperors, not I. That is why I truly hope you can help us, clan leader Jin. So no more of our kin have to face such a fate. Tang San could sense the truth of his words. Su Enyu's sincerity rang clear through his divine consciousness. I understand completely, Brother Su. I'll do my best. But as I said, I can't promise results. We can only try case by case. I used the high-level life energy that I can channel from the ancestral tree. I infused it into Nihil's divine consciousness, so that the destructive instinct invading his divine consciousness would be neutralized by the life energy. That's how he could regain control over his body. Whenever his energy becomes unstable, and the destructive instinct appears, I have to continue to inject rich life energy into him, helping him balance the intensity of his own energy. But that comes with a caveat. He must not break through to the next level. If he becomes an emperor, his annihilation energy will evolve further. With my current ability, I would not be able to suppress him in that state. Well, that's assuming he survives the tribulation, which is quite a tall order. So at least for now, staying with me is the only way for him to survive. But I will do my best to help him. As you all can see, the contract I formed with Nihil is an equal one. There are no restraints. It is only because he is willing to stay with me that we can get along in this way. Although Tang San spoke politely, he essentially made it clear to the Dragon Kings present that the Scourge Dragon would not be returned to them. Even if they took him back, it would only mean death. As for whether I can help other mutant dragons solve their problems, I can try. I can't be certain of success, but I believe that high-level life energy is beneficial and harmless to anyone of any race. So, after the battle for the throne is over, if all of you agree, I'm willing to give it a try. Looking at the honest smile on Tang San's face, Su Enyu let out a long breath, stood up, and bowed to Tang San. Clan leader Jin, whether this effort is successful or not, I will engrave your kindness into my heart. On behalf of the dragon race, I thank you. In the future, if you ever need the help of the dragon race, just speak. May the friendship between the Blue Gold Tree clan and our dragon race last forever. Tang San quickly rose and returned the bow. The more they discussed, the better he thought of Crystalline's disciple. He had disliked Su Enyu before because Su Enyu had tried to chat up Mei Gongzi, and Tang San, in his infinite pettiness, saw him as a rival in love. But now that they were having an honest conversation, he found that Su Enyu had an honest and selfless personality, as well as great charisma. It was no wonder so many dragons were sincerely loyal to him. He did not dwell on the Scourge Dragon's ownership, and even without knowing whether Tang San could succeed, he showed open-mindedness and heartfelt gratitude. This reflected his magnanimity. Brother Su, you're too kind. I will do my best, Tang San said sincerely. Su Enyu said, now is a special period of the battle for the throne. Clan leader Jin, since I am not yet the leader of the dragon race, I have nothing to repay you with on their behalf. But even though I can't speak for others, I can decide for myself. When we meet in the round robin, I will forfeit my match against you to thank you for this favor. Seeing Su Enyu showing such sincerity, Tang San naturally did not refuse. Then I must thank you, Brother Su. I will admit that your sincerity has won me over, and I will do my best to help you after this. Su Enyu was undoubtedly one of the strongest contenders in this battle for the throne, if not the strongest. Avoiding a fight with him meant less risk of Tang San exposing his true strength. Naturally, it was a good thing. And Su Enyu's willingness to make this promise also showed his great confidence. Clearly, he was confident that even if he gave up a match, he could still enter the final top 3. Clan leader Jin will take our leave now. After the competition ends, let's have a proper gathering. We'll surely have to trouble you more in the future. Suan Yu thus politely bade farewell to Tang San and left with the Dragon Kings. Of course, Lu Fuyao didn't follow him out. After seeing them off, Tang San returned to the room. Lu Fuyao was still looking very emotional. Clan leader Jean, thank you so much. You were right. If not for you, my elder brother would certainly have been abandoned. Actually, after that auction I wanted to seek you out, but the race elders stopped me. I didn't expect that disaster would turn into a blessing for my elder brother. This is truly wonderful. Tang San smiled. No wonder at the start today, I felt killing intent from you. Lu Fuyao blushed slightly, but then looked dejected. Clan leader Jean, you don't know what life is like for us puppet dragons. What Suan Yu said just now may have sounded bad, but it was actually the nicest part. In truth, as experimental subjects, the pain puppet dragons endure is beyond imagination. Every kind of bizarre experiment is tried on us. If it weren't for the innate toughness of the dragon body, we wouldn't survive such torment. My elder brother and I were both once puppet dragons. As you've heard, he was the strongest among us. In the past, he wasn't always in that frenzied state, just occasionally. When he was clear-headed, he took care of all of us. Without him, I'd have died long ago. It was thanks to his help that I overcame my own problem and survived to achieve what I have today. Otherwise, I would have ended up as a metal statue years ago. My elder brother actually helped other puppet dragons recover as well. But within the dragon race, those of us who used to be puppet dragons are still rejected. We ourselves don't consider ourselves the same as them either. Tang San was truly moved. He asked, "What about the Crystal Demon Emperor? She was the last dragon lord. So it seems to me like she didn't reject the dragon race." Lu Fuyao gave a bitter smile. Her Majesty was different. From the beginning, her bloodline mutation was a success, so what was there to experiment? She needed to be raised as well as possible. She never became a puppet dragon, nor did she suffer our pain and torment. Instead, she quickly became strong, and because she showed the potential to become an emperor, all resources of the dragon race were concentrated on her. She grew up healthy and cherished, so she feels no barrier toward the dragon race. But we're not the same. In life, we are subject to experiments, and in death, our corpses are dissected as research material. There is no end to the pain, and there is no rest either. At the mention of this practice, hatred flashed in his eyes. Clan leader Jean, I must trouble you to take good care of my elder brother. In the future, whatever you need, just say the word. I will go through fire and water without hesitation. Tang San said, Brother Lu, rest assured. Nihil and I are partners, and I will definitely do my best to help him solve his problems. By the way, can you tell me some more about the puppet dragons? Since I've promised Brother Su, then I will try to help at least some of them solve their issues. If there was a conference on the problems of the puppet dragons, Tang San would surely be the main lecturer. He had been in this world long enough, possessed multiple bloodlines, and had even successfully created transcendent bloodlines. He had even managed to fuse some of the most primordial energies of this plane, yin and yang. He was familiar with all high-level bloodlines, so helping others address issues stemming from bloodline mutations was within his grasp. The Lion Tiger clan was a prime example. Lu Fuyao nodded. Suan Yu was not lying to you at all. He has always advocated for puppet dragons to be treated like normal dragons. He's friendly to us, and he's indeed trying to find solutions. He even said that if he inherits the Dragon Lord position, he will greatly reduce investment in bloodline research and ensure research safety. Research must continue, and even I understand that, but mutant dragons must get fair treatment. So I support him. It's rare to have someone with such great power and also such great compassion. He's much better than the tenebrous demon emperor. Yes, Brother Su is indeed excellent. Tang San nodded. Even someone like Lu Fuyao, who hated the dragon race, acknowledged Suan Yu's virtue. This showed how respected Suan Yu was among the dragons. If he could achieve emperor level, he would truly be a great dragon lord. Lu Fuyao said. As far as I know, there should still be over 100 puppet dragons, maybe up to 120. The vast majority of puppet dragons are very strong but mentally unstable at best. The pain they endured during mutation and experimentation is so great that they end up not just with their brain and sea of divine consciousness damaged, but also with trauma-induced reactions. And I say divine consciousness because I'm talking about those at the 10th order and above. I haven't even counted those below the Demon King level. Many puppet dragons level die while trying to break through to the 10th order, and many of those that survive cannot recover spiritually and end up like my elder brother. Others survive and heal, and those ones regain their freedom, but they are very few. Tang San was truly shocked. Although he had long known that the dragon race was powerful, it was only after hearing Lu Fuyao's account that he truly understood just how powerful they were. Just the puppet dragons alone numbered over 100 at the Demon King level or higher. How terrifying was that? And that didn't even include the normal dragons. In other words, the dragon race's long-standing reputation as the #1 race on the continent was well-deserved. Even without the Crystal Demon Emperor presiding over Crystal City, it would be a cold day in hell before anyone took it away from them. Problems pertaining to divine consciousness are the hardest to solve. The dragon race even attempted a kind of brainwashing process in order to straighten out and stabilize the puppet dragon's divine consciousness, but that backfired spectacularly. The subjects all died, so those in charge did not dare to repeat that experiment. All they could do was use collars to control them. The puppet dragons with less severe conditions could be sent directly into battle. Anyway, this is why my elder brother is respected by all the puppet dragons. He took care of us as much as he could, and without him at least another third of us would have died. There are 6 or 7 like me who were able to become normal dragons thanks to his help. I'll contact them afterward and bring them to pay respects to my elder brother. I wonder if that would be alright with you, clan leader Jean. Tang San nodded. That's not a problem. Any time is fine. That's great. Thank you so much. Lu Fuyao was overjoyed and bowed to Tang San again. Tang San said, Brother Lu, there's no need to be so polite. In fact, it's me who should be thanking you for choosing to concede today. No. I wasn't going to make it to the finals anyway. Being able to see my elder brother regain his sanity makes me happier than anything else. But in the next matches, I must ask you to watch over my elder brother and make sure that he... At this point he paused, but his meaning was clear to Tang San. Don't worry, Brother Lu. Nihil and I are partners not just for the battle for the throne but in the future as well. I will take good care of him. Tang San promised. That's good. After seeing Lu Fuyao off, Tang San's residence finally quieted down. From Lu Fuyao's repeated gratitude, it was clear that the Scourge Dragon indeed held a high status among the puppet dragons. More than 100 puppet dragons. This was an unexpected bonus. Meanwhile, the first round of the round robin had come to an end, and among all the matches, what the spectators discussed the most was the Amethystan warrior. In the other matches, much unlike in the elimination rounds, everyone held back in their fights. No one went all out. After all, the round robin would go on for a while, with daily matches and many opponents. No one wanted to compromise their condition at the start and affect future matches. But Jean Miaolin was different. In the eyes of the spectators, he was absolutely the weakest participant in the round robin, including the female contestants. Yet he kept creating miracles, and all these miracles were tied to the items he had won at the auction. Who dared say now that he was just a fool with too much money? His auction purchases had proven their worth. The Sword Saint statue had brought him 2 victories. Then he had used the Dark Turtle Shield to defeat the World-Sundering Sword, another surprising match. And most recently, he had summoned the powerful Scourge Dragon and managed to keep it under control. That was the most astonishing of all. With the Scourge Dragon appearing, the Metal Dragon King Lu Fuyao immediately conceded, giving him another round-robin win. And in future matches, the Scourge Dragon would undoubtedly become his main combat force. Moreover, no matter how weak Jean Miaolin himself seemed, he was still a great nymph king, and his life energy would definitely give the dragon a tremendous boost. This supposed weakest competitor had suddenly become a fan favorite. Was the true power of Amethystan? This truly overturned many spectators' expectations. They'd all flapped their lips about Jean Miaolin being nothing but a wastrel, and he hadn't bothered to argue with them. But facts spoke louder than words. He had gone from obvious loser to dark horse to hot contender. Not a seeded player, but in a way better than one. And this was exactly what Tang San wanted the spectators, especially the emperors, to feel. Step by step through his auction items, he would progress naturally in the competition. What seemed impossible at first would, Once it happened enough times, appear natural. This was his aim. Even though he didn't know who his next opponents would be, he had plenty of means to position himself advantageously. But his next opponent would be a tough one. Compared to Su Yu, who had just casually flirted with Mei Gongzi, this next opponent was on another level. He had actually gone to Kali City to formally propose marriage. This was Tang San's actual rival in love, the Lord of Sky-Splitting City and Behemoth King Jinongwa. In his first match, Jinongwa conceded to Su Yu after a tentative clash, without showing his full strength. But losing another match would be a different matter. That could well mean giving up on the battle for the throne. So even though Tang San had revealed the Scourge Dragon, his match with Jinongwa would be a genuine clash. Scourge Dragon Knight, Amethystan Warrior Jin Mirolan, against Sky-Splitting City Lord Jinongwa. This was bound to be a match for the ages. In fact, while the arena betting pool was strictly for the final winners, there were private betting pools for this match among the common folk. The odds, as reported to Tang San by the Blue Gold Tree Clan elders, still favored Jinongwa winning. After all, he was the Behemoth King, the undisputed leader of a clan that could give dragons and phoenixes a run for their money. He was also the only male behemoth to have made it this far. He represented his whole clan, and clearly aimed to win this battle for the throne. There was no way he would give up easily. No one knew the full depth of his strength, but it was undoubtedly immense. Meanwhile, Tang San's trump card seemed almost played out. His useful auction winnings were nearly all revealed. Only the Radiant Dragon Spear had yet to be used. And although the Radiant Dragon Spear was among the finest divine items, its effectiveness depended on the wielder. Su Yu wielding it would unquestionably be a calamity, but in the hands of a blue gold tree who wasn't adept at fighting, what difference would it make? It would all come down to the Scourge Dragon's true strength, and whether Jin Mirolan could coordinate with it. Amid great anticipation, the next match day arrived. Today's first match featured yesterday's first winner, Su Yu. His opponent was yesterday's second loser, Lu Fuyao, the winner of one fight versus the loser of the other. The same would be true for Tang San against Jinongwa later. The competitors ranked 5 through 8 would also follow this pairing. Thus, in the next round, Tang San would face Su Yu, and after that the other 4 would follow. Today's referee was the Endless Nymph Emperor, but as it turned out, the referee's job for this match was rather easy. Su Yu and Lu Fuyao appeared on the stage. After they saluted each other, Lu Fuyao immediately chose to concede. This was the Dragon Race's strategy. Su Yu was to be propelled forward at all costs. As for whether that tenebrous dragon was going to cooperate with this plan, Tang San wasn't sure. But it was clear that even though Lu Fuyao had been a puppet dragon and therefore despised dragons in general, he genuinely supported Su Yu. With 2 victories from 2 matches, Su Yu immediately became the top-ranked male contestant. Lu Fuyao, with 2 defeats, was in a much worse position. Moreover, in the next round he would face another powerhouse like Jinongwa, and the situation would be even more unpredictable. But Tang San figured that when Lu Fuyao faced Jinongwa, he would definitely go all out to lower Jinongwa's combat power as much as possible, thereby reducing Su Yu's competition. Her killing intent burst forth like a geyser. The space gates, now infused with this killing intent, seemed to come alive again. Silver radiance returned, and the Yin energy of the moon sacrifice was drawn into the space gates. Mei Gongzi's toes lightly tapped the ground as she danced gracefully. She was actually starting the celestial dance from the very beginning. Space gates rippled outward with her every step, devouring the chilling Yin energy. The Endless Nymph Emperor looked at both sides. Prepare yourselves. This time, Mei Gongzi's opponent was one who had lost in the previous round, a contestant from the Netherman Flower clan. This person had been defeated by Lan Maqian of the Behemoth clan, and during that match she had sustained some injuries. But Lan Maqian hadn't come out unscathed either, as the Netherman Flower had unleashed her clan's innate ability, the moon sacrifice at the last moment, wounding her opponent and almost turning the tables. The deep blue Netherman in the sky abruptly turned blood red. The air of the arena thickened as if turning viscous. The chilling Yin energy went berserk. As expected, the space gates froze one after another, and a terrifying oppressive force seemed to freeze the entire world. The first male set of the day concluded, and next it was time for the female contestants. Mei Gongzi, who had won her first match in the previous round, was about to take the stage. With one step she rose into the air. The space gates around her radiated brilliant silver light, pushing the chilling yin energy back. Mei Gongzi's brow furrowed slightly. Her face was still hidden behind a veil, which concealed her expression from the viewers, so they could not tell how she was feeling. But in the next instant, a chilling aura erupted from her that was in no way inferior to her opponent's. As he sensed the energy fluctuations and observed the Netherman flower for a moment, a faint smile appeared on Tang San's face. This round wouldn't be a problem. The frenzied outburst shattered over a third of Mei Gongzi's space gates in an instant, and the remaining gates began breaking at a startling pace. Before the rise of the Sunborn Nymph Emperor, the Scorching Sunflower clan had actually been weaker than the Netherman Flower clan. In other words, back then, the Netherman Flower clan was the strongest among the nymph clans. The late Scorching Sunflower Nymph Emperor hadn't been quite up to par, and even though he had been no weakling, he had been unable to take the top spot. This had only changed with the appearance of Sunborn, who was able to flip the tables all by himself. This was the move she had used in the final clash with Lan Maqian, and it had nearly won her the match. Today, to everyone's surprise, she unleashed her ultimate move at the very start, clearly aiming to catch Mei Gongzi off guard. Mei Gongzi's elegant dance halted as the cold yin energy closed in from all sides. The space gates around her began to disintegrate under the invasive force, and the blue halo spread toward her at a concerning speed. Now, under the shroud of the Netherman domain, Shun Zhao's figure gradually disappeared among the blooming blue flowers. As the endless nymph emperor's voice declared the start of the match and the barrier between them vanished, chilling yin energy surged toward Mei Gongzi like a tidal wave. The blue flowers rose with chilling yin energy, emitting faint blue mist under the moonlight. Although Tang San was about to face Jin Ongwa in his next match, he wasn't particularly nervous about his own battle. But when it came to Mei Gongzi's matches, he truly felt tense. Anyone able to reach this stage of the competition was rich in battle experience. Shen Shao was no exception. Seeing Mei Gongzi combine this new force with her space domain to break free of the moon sacrifice's encroaching energy, she reacted instantly. But unlike the chilling yin energy of the moon's sacrifice, Mei Gongzi's aura seemed to be caused not by the nature of her bloodline power, but by her divine consciousness. It was killing intent. Both sides took the stage, and Mei Gongzi and the Netherman Flower contestant exchanged bows. This spoke volumes about the deep heritage of the Netherman Flower clan. Mei Gongzi had been the victor yesterday, defeating a formidable opponent whose control over the elements and overall power were no joke. So before today's match, Shen Shao had planned her strategy. Go all out from the beginning, no probing, just strike full power and end it as fast as possible. Unseen by the spectators, a faint pink hue appeared in Mei Gongzi's eyes. Just then, the moonlight above Shen Zhao's head changed. What had been a bright white moonlight suddenly turned blue. The strange blue hue was accompanied by a mass of chilling yin energy that instantly engulfed the entire space and caused the arena's temperature to plummet. The space gates around Mei Gongzi's body seemed to freeze, becoming sluggish. The moonlight swept in swiftly. Blue flowers bloomed beside the Netherman flower girl named Shan Shao. She had managed to wound Lan Maqian in the previous round despite her opponent using 3 divine items. Though she had been ultimately defeated, she had fought valiantly, and after a night of recovery, at least on the surface, she appeared mostly healed. The Netherman above seemed to enlarge, its blue hue growing ever deeper. Silver ripples spread from Mei Gongzi's body, and one by one, space gates quietly opened, bathing everything around her in silver light. But the invading yin energy was extremely aggressive, so much so that even space itself was affected. Each space gate could absorb only so much yin energy before breaking down in the process. The Netherman flower closed her eyes. Instantly, a halo of moonlight flickered above her head, and the surrounding space darkened. It was the clan's well-known domain, the Netherman domain. Blood Moon Sacrifice. Blood Moon Sacrifice. This was the ultimate desperate move of the Netherman Flower clan. It wasn't until it faced the sword directly that it felt its terrifying sharpness. If it hadn't instantly unleashed his full power, and if Mei Gongzi hadn't restrained herself after hearing her opponent's concession, the result wouldn't have been just this bloodline. It would have been far worse. Even now, the weakest of the nymph emperors felt its divine consciousness trembling, gripped by fear of that sword. But at that moment a crisp metallic hum rang out. The Azura shadow sword in Mei Gongxi's hands turned into red light, returning into her sea of consciousness. She bowed slightly to the endless nymph emperor in the sky and then, drawing on her space power, teleported away. After declaring Mei Gongxi the winner, the endless nymph emperor turned into a streak of blue light and flew toward the mountainside. It was not only the endless nymph emperor and the other emperors that were shaken. Even Mei Gongxi herself felt a sense of disbelief as she returned to her rest chamber. When it intervened to stop Mei Gongxi, it hadn't gone all out at first, believing that no matter how powerful a great demon king was, they could not possibly threaten an emperor. That moment of carelessness nearly cost it dearly. In the same instant that the red light appeared, Mei Gongxi's figure vanished. The endless nymph emperor returned directly to its rest chamber and transmitted a message to the celestial fox demon emperor requesting to be relieved as referee. The next moment, Mei Gongxi brought the Azura shadow sword down. A brilliant blood-red sword light flew toward the blood moon. She would sever the blood moon and break the blood moon's sacrifice. Yesterday, when San Shao faced Lan Maqian, she hesitated. She did not want to use the blood moon's sacrifice if at all possible. But today there was no more room for second thoughts. If she lost this match, she might truly lose her chances at the throne. Among the female contestants, there were only 3 demons in the semifinals, while the others were nymphs. And beyond their individual ambitions, these contestants also had to consider their clan's interests, as well as their country's interests. With the Solstice Empire at a disadvantage on the male side, the female contestants had to strive for as great an advantage as possible to secure a spot for the throne. The blood moon's radiance dimmed under the glow of the sword. The terrifying chilling energy of the blood moon's sacrifice couldn't even approach her. It collapsed on its own before reaching her. Terror still filled its eyes. San Shao didn't even know what she felt anymore. To her senses, it was as if the entire world had been split apart. The blood-red gemstone in her hand trembled violently. At the moment the blood moon sacrifice was activated, Mei Gongxi indeed came under tremendous pressure. Though her space power was at an all-time high, it was now suppressed so much that even her celestial dance couldn't function. Mei Gongxi of the Peacock Demon Clan wins, the Endless Nymph Emperor announced. Below, San Shao looked dazed. She naturally had no idea what that strange sword truly was, but she could clearly feel that her blood moon sacrifice had no effect on its power. She had conceded because the voice of the Earthshade Nymph Emperor had sounded in her mind just a fraction of a second before Mei Gongxi's strike fell, awakening her from her stupor and urging her to give up. A chill swept over San Shao. If she hadn't heeded the Earthshade Nymph Emperor's call and conceded at once, that sword would have split her blood moon gem in half. And with that, she herself would have been obliterated. This had been her first time using the Azura sword since acquiring the Shadow Fiend's sword. All this time she had been refining the new Azura Shadow Sword, and the result proved that with a vessel, the Azura Sword's power was greater not just by a little, but by orders of magnitude. Now, it could truly display some of its original transcendent might. The contestants were puzzled. What was happening? Until now, all referees had overseen at least 3 matches before being replaced. Where was the Endless Nymph Emperor going? The Blood Moon Gem, a first-tier clan's most powerful divine item, was afraid. To use the Blood Moon sacrifice required not only the clan's divine item, the Blood Moon Gem, but also offering her own blood essence as a sacrifice. After using it, she would suffer great vitality loss. But if she could defeat Mei Gongxi and win this match, the vitality loss could still be recovered with heavenly treasures. The combination of the Azura Hell Domain and the Space Domain was also completely suppressed by the might of the Blood Moon sacrifice. The blood-colored moon in the sky rapidly grew larger, its chilling energy turning more savage under the blood-red light. All of Mei Gongxi's killing intent seemed to vanish in an instant. She raised her head, her gaze locking onto the blood moon above. A brilliant red light burst from the center of her forehead. Mei Gongxi was in midair with nowhere to dodge. All the space around her was sealed off by the blood moon sacrifice. The Endless Nymph Emperor appeared before the blood moon in an instant. It clasped its hands together, and deep blue light swirled, catching the blood-red sword light. The blood moon vanished at that moment. I concede. San Shao's voice rang out, trembling with fear. That sword didn't even strike. How Could there be a crack? There was no doubt. That sword was Mei Gongxi's life-bound divine item, the very same she'd used once before during the Ancestral Court Elite competition. But how had it grown so powerful? When had the Peacock Demon clan come to possess such a terrifying thing? A moment later, Mei Gongxi reappeared, standing midair. It seemed as if that massive blood-red moon was right before her. In her hands, a long sword had appeared. It was also blood-red, but strangely, to all the spectators, the crimson gleam of her blade and the crimson moonlight were completely different. At some point, the Sword Saint Demon Emperor had emerged on the Emperor's platform and was now watching Mei Gongxi. He murmured, "Judgment Sword. This is the true Judgment Sword." The Emperors had seen this blood-red sword before, during the Ancestral Court Elite competition, but now it felt entirely different. Even the Emperors could feel a crushing, indescribable pressure from the blade. Though it was a rather demonic-looking crimson, it seemed to embody righteous power. It was this majestic and righteous presence that drove the Colding energy away by sheer virtue of its existence. Just then, San Shao heard a crisp cracking sound from her hand. Looking down, she saw a crack running across the blood moon gem in her palm. Only after entering the chamber did a blood line appear on its forehead, stretching all the way to its lower abdomen. Blue light continuously flowed in from both sides to heal it, but every time the wound closed, it reopened. The residual sword intent seemed so endless the Emperor was starting to question its own title. San Shao carried the hopes of the Earthshade Nymph Emperor. Mei Gongxi did not search for San Shao among the flowers. Gripping the hilt of the Azura Shadow Sword with both hands, she slowly raised it overhead. The domain below dispersed, revealing San Shao. Indeed, such large-scale, overpowering attacks were the most effective counters to the celestial dance. Hidden among the Netherman flowers, San Shao was quickly consuming heavenly treasures to replenish her depleted blood essence. She felt as if victory was already within her grasp. At the same time, Mei Gongxi could even sense through the Azura Shadow Sword that the real Azura Sword was racing toward her at high speed. Even more importantly, this was the first time Mei Gongxi truly sensed that the genuine Azura Sword had locked onto her and would soon come to her side. Sadly, she couldn't tell Tang San about this yet. She had been reluctant to use the Azura Shadow Sword so early in the tournament, but when faced with the Blood Moon sacrifice, she had no choice but to do so. In that situation, even her White Tiger transformation or Immortal Flame Phoenix transformation wouldn't have been enough to turn the tide, unless she went for mutual destruction and then used Nirvana Rebirth. Moreover, the Azura Sword had already been seen in the Ancestral Court Elite competition, so it would not be weird for her to use it again. By contrast, it was better to hide the Phoenix bloodline for as long as possible in order to keep her ties to the Phoenix race a secret. Otherwise, the obstacles to her path to becoming an emperor would be immense. 0. This was something her grandfathers had told her and Tang San had confirmed. During this battle for the throne, she had to avoid using the power of her Phoenix bloodline as much as possible. If there was ever a time to reveal it, that time would be during her Emperor Tribulation. By then, with the protection of the Undying Demon Emperor and the White Tiger Demon Emperor, even if the other emperors discovered her Phoenix bloodline, it would be far too late for them to do anything about it. So unless it was truly a matter of life or death, she wouldn't use Nirvana Rebirth. But even Mei Gongxi herself hadn't expected the sword's power to be so terrifying. The moment she grasped the Azura Shadow Sword, the Colding energy that had posed a deadly threat moments before was immediately driven aside, unable to even approach her. She felt as if she had become the center of the world, and when she slashed down, it was as if she was passing judgment on the Blood Moon itself. The intent conveyed by the Azura Sword at that moment was, all things in this world must submit to judgment, and nothing is immune. The endless Nymph Emperor's mighty bloodline power resisted her strike, and Mei Gongxi clearly felt its tremendous power. It was so dense that it felt more like quicksilver than water. Yet even so, this immense power gave out in front of her blade. 0. Of course, Mei Gongxi quickly stopped the attack and took the Azura Shadow Sword back inside her sea of consciousness. She did not want to reveal too much of the Azura Sword's might. Meanwhile, the entire audience was in an uproar. San Shao had been one of the favorites among the female contestants. In fact, she was a serious candidate for the strongest among nymphs in this competition. This came as a surprise to no one. Aside from the Scorching Sunflower clan, The most powerful nymph clan was the Nethermoon Flower clan, after all. Yet, even after using the Blood Moon sacrifice, a move bordering on self-sacrifice that would take a long time to recover from, she had still lost. Even worse, that attack had wounded her to the very core. Despite giving it her all, she had been defeated in a single stroke by Mei Gongzi. What was that blood sword? No one believed it was a demonic weapon, as the righteous aura it radiated in that moment was simply too overwhelming to ignore. But how could this Mei Gongzi of the Peacock Demon clan be so powerful? With 2 victories in a row, both against powerful opponents, no one could now say that her bye in the elimination round had been unearned. With just these 2 wins, she had instantly become a top contender. Point 2. Having watched the entire match from outside his VIP pavilion, Tang San showed a gratified smile. It had worked. In such a short time, Mei Gongzi had succeeded in fully merging the Azura Sword and the Shadow Fiend Sword. A remarkable feat. With the fusion complete, the Azura Sword was now able to display the true might of a transcendent divine item. With its protection, even an emperor would find it difficult to harm Mei Gongzi now. At last, she could truly be considered safe. Even without Tang San by her side, the Azura Sword would be enough. Even if Mei Gongzi had chosen not to wield the Azura Shadow Sword openly, and that chilling energy had invaded her body, it couldn't have harmed her. The powerful intent of the Azura Sword would have shielded her on its own. But it was good that she had, in the end. She had not been entirely accustomed to using the Azura Shadow Sword, as it was on a whole different level from the incorporeal seed of sword intent that she'd used before. After this battle, she would surely gain a deeper understanding of it. With 2 wins, Mei Gongzi now stood at the top of the female contestants, neck and neck with the Radiant Dragon King. The second match for the male contestants. Both sides enter the field. The Celestial Fox Demon Emperor continued with his announcements, seemingly entirely unfazed by the Azura Sword. Tang San's lips curled in a slight smile. His turn had come. Instinctively, he glanced to the side. Today, Ning Chenen had not come out of his pavilion. Whether he didn't want to see Tang San or had simply given up hope of encountering this weakest opponent, Tang San didn't know. But Ning Chenen was in the second bracket, and once the first bracket matches were done, they would inevitably meet. Although by that time it was anybody's guess whether he would still want to fight Tang San. Tang San leapt into the air and descended lightly into the arena. Not far away, the Lord of Sky-Splitting City and Behemoth King Jinongwa also took to the air and landed across from him. Amethystin Warrior! Amethystin Warrior! 0. No sooner had Tang San entered the arena than a chorus of cheers erupted from the stands, loud and widespread. This time those shouts contained far less mockery and much more genuine excitement. Even Tang San was a little surprised. Since the tournament began, he had been relying on cleverness to win match after match, so how had he managed to gather so much support? 0. In truth, it was because of empathy. The logic was simple. In this world, true top-tier powerhouses were rare, but most people aspired to become strong. Enter Jean Mirolan, a young sprout of the Blue Gold Tree clan. He was clearly terrible when it came to personal power, but through wealth, he had armed himself and won battle after battle. So what would the spectators think? 0. If I had money, I could do that too. 0. If I had the Sword Saint Demon Emperor statue, I could win. If I had the Dark Turtle Shield, I could withstand the world-sundering sword. If I had a Scourge Dragon, maybe I could rampage my way to the throne. 0. So now, in many spectators' eyes, this Amethystin Warrior was their natural representative. And it was due to this that he had gained their support. If Tang San knew this, he'd probably find it amusing and exasperating in equal measure. Jinongwa landed steadily across from him. His gaze was calm without excessive emotion, but brimming with determination as he stared at Tang San. He could not afford to lose this match. To be sure of placing in the top 3 and advancing to the finals, a contestant would need at least 6 wins in this round robin. He had already lost 1 match and needed to save 1 as a safety margin. In other words, he absolutely could not lose today. Thus, Jinongwa's eyes showed nothing but unshakable resolve. To him, losing this match would mean losing the entire battle for the throne. It would be almost impossible to contend for the throne afterward. Thus, he was approaching this match as if it were his last. He had discussed Jean Mirolan at length the previous night with Ning Chenen and Lan Maqian. They had all come to the same conclusion. This person was anything but simple, and he certainly was not the frail blue gold tree he appeared to be. Each victory looked like pure luck, but how could a single person have so much luck? It was simply not possible. Sure, he had acquired those items at the auction, but he couldn't have known in advance what would be available, and he could not have known whom he would face. How could he have known what to bid on? 0. More importantly, from start to finish, he had remained perfectly calm, perfectly composed, no matter whom he was up against. He had faced nothing but powerful opponents, yet he didn't even have a single scratch to show for it. Now Jean Ongwa no longer saw him as a free point bank, but as an opponent equal to himself, and he was prepared to act on that premise. Facing Jean Ongwa across the arena, Tang San's gaze was equally calm. This opponent was, after all, the greatest rival in love he had ever had in 3 lifetimes, the only one who had actually gone to propose marriage to the woman he loved. Tang San hadn't even proposed himself, yet Jean Ongwa had already done so. Naturally, Tang San harbored a strong sense of hostility toward him. 6. The emperor presiding over this match descended from the sky. It was none other than the undying demon emperor, the most formidable combatant among the emperors of the Empyrean Dominion. When Mei Gongzi defeated her opponent and inadvertently injured the endless nymph emperor, ordinary spectators might not have noticed, but how could the emperors be unaware? And how could they not be shaken? A mere great demon king had managed to injure an emperor. The undying demon emperor, shocked as he was also overjoyed. That single strike of Mei Gongzi's practically guaranteed she would advance to the finals. That sword technique was no weaker than the world-sundering sword, and the divine weapon had to be far stronger than whatever Qiu Zixuan used. Otherwise, it could not possibly have injured the endless nymph emperor. And now this match featured Jean Ongwa, and opposite him the blue gold tree clan leader who had the scourge dragon, essentially making it a 2-on-1. Out of caution, the celestial fox demon emperor had assigned the undying demon emperor to personally referee this match, just in case anything went wrong. On this, the celestial fox demon emperor had consulted the sunborn nymph emperor, who had no objections. "Prepare yourselves," the undying demon emperor said calmly, his gaze sweeping across both sides. Tang San, without hesitation, summoned the scourge dragon. Though Nihil had appeared once before, his reappearance on the platform, with those purple-black scales and that terrifying aura, still sent the audience into a frenzy. Yesterday, this Dragon Knight duo hadn't clashed with the opponent. Today was going to be different. The scourge dragon appeared from his pocket dimension, and immediately Tang San jumped on his head. His ferocity remained undiminished, but he showed no sign of madness. Clearly, the Blue Gold Tree Clan leader had truly succeeded in suppressing his frenzy. The dragon race representatives and spectators alike were thrilled, and the other spectators were filled with eager anticipation. On the other side, Jean Ongwa's eyes glowed with dark gold light. In the next instant his body swelled, transforming in a flash into a massive beast more than 17 meters tall. The behemoth was known as the invincible titan of the land, and as the leader of the behemoth clan and lord of sky-splitting city, Jean Ongwa without a question among the finest of his kind. The surge of bloodline power radiating from him was so intense that the space around him cracked under the strain, as if even the very plane struggled to contain him. His massive arms were thick and powerful, and his claws 2 meters long, terrifying weapons capable of shredding the scales of dragons and cutting off the wings of golden rocks. A moment later, his whole body was enveloped in a dark gold aura. His dark golden fur rose like steel needles, and his fierce gaze locked onto the scourged dragon beneath Tang San. In everyone's eyes, this was a battle between Jean Ongwa and the scourged dragon. Whether the Blue Gold Tree Clan leader could contribute to any measurable extent was anybody's guess. Tang San sat a little behind the crown of Nihil's massive head. The 8 spines on his back once more expanded as vines and intertwined with the sharp protrusions on the dragon's head, securing him firmly to the nape of Nihil's neck. In his right hand he summoned the radiant dragon spear. Another item from the mega-auction was making its first appearance on the battlefield. Both sides were towering giants, and Tang San was ignored altogether. The undying demon emperor looked between them and then gave a deep command. "Begin." 0. In the next moment, the undying demon emperor turned into a streak of red light, shooting into the sky, and the barrier isolating the combatants' energies vanished. Roar! The scourged dragon let out a deafening roar. Its purple eyes filled with a flash of madness as he opened his mouth and unleashed a breath of purple destruction directly at Jinongwa. Jinongwa sidestepped in an instant. Despite his massive frame, he moved with astonishing agility. In a flash, he was at the scourged dragon's flank. His right hand slashed for the dragon's underbelly, while his left went for Tang San himself. Those dark gold claws seemed capable of ripping the very world apart. Wherever they passed, black space rifts were left in their wake. Jinongwa's eyes were cold and focused. He was going to win whatever he had to do for that. But Nihil was no slouch. 0. As Jinongwa closed in, his wings beat powerfully, carrying him and Tang San sharply to the side. Simultaneously, his right wing slashed down like a massive guillotine toward Jinongwa. Jinongwa did not retreat. Instead, he stepped forward once more, and the ground beneath him boomed from the impact. A shockwave burst outward, and he used the recoil to leap into the air, his dark gold aura flaring as his claws swung at the scourged dragon's wing. The dragon's wing swept upward, avoiding the claws, while his other wing slammed into the ground to counter the shockwave. At the same time, he let out another breath toward Jinongwa. Dark purple annihilation energy spread like wildfire. Jinongwa let out a powerful shout, and dark golden light burst from his body. His formidable protective aura held back the destructive breath for a moment, just enough for him to get away. He dared not let that energy touch him directly. As his bloodline power flared, the air above the arena seemed to burn, so potent was his force. Jinongwa sprang skyward, soaring over 30 meters up, and dove down at the scourged dragon, claws aimed for his head and for Tang San as well. Nihil tilted his head upward and let out yet another breath, this time sweeping it toward Jinongwa. And this time Jinongwa did not dodge. His claws slashed down, 10 razor-sharp dark golden arcs slicing through the breath. Though those arcs dissolved under the annihilation energy, they carved open a path for him. Like a dark golden meteor, he crashed toward the dragon. Nihil's wings swept in from either side, clashing with Jinongwa in midair. A thunderous impact rang out. Jinongwa's massive body flipped in the air and landed solidly. The scourged dragon was driven back several steps, and his wings now bore fresh wounds. His purple-black scales were torn where they had met the behemoth's claws. Behemoth's reputation as the strongest creature that walked the land was well earned. On land, even dragons and phoenixes could not match them, thanks to their terrifying claws, which rivaled divine weapons. Of course, Jinongwa remained wary of the scourged dragon's energy attacks. His bloodline power could clash directly with that energy, and even if it was obliterated, that came at little cost to him. But if he happened to be hit square, he didn't even dare to imagine. Even his titanic physique would be unable to take it. "Take to the sky, brother Nihil," Tang San said quietly. He had yet to act. He'd spent these exchanges studying Jinongwa, and there was no denying it. This behemoth was exceptional. It was no wonder that he'd surpassed his older brothers and everybody else to become the lord of Sky-Splitting City. His bloodline was dense and powerful, just like Suan Yu's, placing him just a step away from the 12th Order. If the Sky-Splitting Demon Emperor were to fall, Jinongwa would be the natural successor. Jinongwa's combat techniques and experience were incredibly refined. Though the Scourge Dragon was extremely powerful, he was now somewhat suppressed by the behemoth. Nihil crouched low, and in the next instant, his wings beat powerfully as he prepared to soar into the sky. The heavens were the true domain of the dragon and phoenix races. Although behemoths could, at a certain level, use their bloodline power to fly, they were still far inferior to dragons or phoenixes in this regard. But at that moment, Jinongwa's eyes suddenly flashed, and a golden token-like object shot forth. He roared, "No flight!" 0. At once, an invisible pressure filled the sky, as if the very rules of the world had been rewritten. Nihil had just taken off when he was crushed by this force and forced back toward the ground. Such an opportunity was not something Jinongwa would let slip. With a single stride, he leapt upward, his claws slashing from both sides. 10 massive dark golden blades of energy cleaved toward the Scourge Dragon's belly. a divine item that could suppress flight, clearly something designed to counter the dragon and phoenix races. And even with such careful preparation, Jinongwa had still forfeited his match against Su Enyu the day before. This showed just how formidable Su Enyu's true strength had to be. In that instant, Nihil revealed his true might. His enormous wings spread wide. Despite the suppression of Jinongwa's token, the high-tier nature of his annihilation energy allowed him to resist the downward force to some extent. At the same time, his purple-black scales brightened, turning a radiant purple. Seeing this, Jinongwa immediately twisted in midair. His foot slammed into the ground to halt his momentum, and he pivoted sharply, darting to the side. A moment later, a massive beam of purple light, as large as the scourge dragon itself, crashed down. If Jinongwa had been a fraction slower, he would have been engulfed. There was no boom, no crashing sound, no flare of light. A pit simply appeared as if it had always been there. 100-meter deep pit. 0. The purple glow spread outward from it, dissolving the earth itself. It looked as if it was a well from which a spring of obliteration gushed out. What destruction! The scourge dragon's outburst was so devastating that the spectators gasped, and the protective shield blazed brightly to fend off the invading annihilation energy. Jinongwa's expression grew grim as he watched the scourge dragon, his body still glowing with radiant purple light. He drew a deep breath and his eyes turned red. His massive 17-meter form swelled yet again, becoming even more muscular and surpassing 20 meters in height. His claws extended to 3 meters long. Bloodthirsty berserk mode. A high-level innate ability of the behemoths. It was not something Jinongwa had been planning to use right now, but this opponent had driven him to unleash his true strength. He believed that even though the scourge dragon's power was truly fearsome, it couldn't sustain such power indefinitely. Before the next attack came, Jinongwa darted aside at lightning speed. In truth, his attacks so far had been probing, not all out. He was watching for an opening while remaining wary of the scourge dragon's energy attacks. Such was the power of the scourge dragon. It enabled him to stand his ground against the behemoth clan leader, the mightiest of land creatures. 0. Nihil crashed to the ground beside the great pit. He did not immediately attack again. Instead, his purple eyes glowed with a growing frenzy. Tang San gripped his horn with his right hand, feeding life energy into his sea of consciousness to steady his mind. Easy, brother Nihil. If he wants to play at attrition, let's oblige him. As he spoke, blue-golden light surged from Tang San's body. Rich life energy gathered from all directions, enveloping him and, by extension, the scourge dragon. The purple of the dragon's scales, which had begun to dim, brightened again under the blue-golden radiance. In this world, no one could match Tang San's understanding of life and annihilation. He could use life energy to soothe the scourge dragon's divine consciousness, driving out the destructive instinct within it, or use it as fuel for precisely the annihilation energy that caused the instinct. Long ago, in the God realm, the god of annihilation had staged a rebellion, nearly toppling the realm itself. But when the God realm faced an unprecedented calamity, a storm of temporal chaos, the god of annihilation repented. After admitting his fault to Supreme God King Tang San, he and his wife, the goddess of life, merged their bodies into the God realm's protective force, stabilizing it. They left behind seeds of their power, which Tang San safeguarded until passing their legacies to his son and daughter-in-law before his own reincarnation. Having held the seeds of life and annihilation for so long, Tang San deeply grasped their laws and their intricate relationship. Back then, had the goddess of life aided her husband with her power, even Tang San would have been unable to stand against them. Such was the wondrous primal might of life and annihilation, two of the most fundamental forces in the universe. As Nihil felt its expended annihilation energy rapidly replenished and even ignited by Tang San's life energy, he froze in astonishment. Since becoming a puppet dragon, his only duty had been to fight, enduring endless trials and foes. Because of his nature, even when wounded, he could only rely on self-recovery. But now from Tang San he felt true support. The sensation was so wonderful that even without further input from Tang San, his divine consciousness grew clearer. Nihil let out a joyful, unrestrained roar, and his purple eyes fixed on Jinongwa. If his bloodline power could be endlessly replenished, then he was practically invincible, at least to opponents beneath the rank of emperor. A thunderous roar shook the air as dazzling purple light burst from the scourged dragon, covering the entire arena. The space was limited, and when Nihil unleashed his annihilation energy without restraint, there was no escape from its reach. The protective energy around Jinongwa's body steamed as it was rapidly consumed by the destruction force. Jinongwa's eyes widened in shock and fury. That bastard Jin Mirolin could actually use life energy to sustain the scourged dragon? How was that possible? How was he supposed to fight this? 0. Jin Mirolin himself wasn't a threat, but this ability was utterly bizarre. His life energy could nourish the scourged dragon's destruction force, letting it last longer and even grow stronger. In fact, at that moment, Jinongwa felt as though the scourged dragon had reached emperor-level strength. 0. Roar! Nihil roared again, and within his annihilation energy appeared deep purple bubbles. As they started to burst, everything nearby withered at alarming speed. Even the arena's protective barrier began to corrode. A clear phoenix cry rang out across the sky, and blazing flames descended from above. The crimson light merged into the protective shield, barely managing to halt the spread of the destruction force, but the flames too were being rapidly consumed by that devastating power. Outside the shield, a strange scene unfolded. Vast streams of blue-golden light surged toward the platform. Not only was the life energy in the air being drawn in, but even the spectators felt as though something within themselves was being drained away. Indeed, while Tang San's life energy could serve as fuel for the annihilation energy, the annihilation energy was in turn strengthening his life deprivation domain. The two forces complemented one another, their interaction so strong that it affected the entire arena. And yet at that moment Tang San felt no joy. The reason was simple. The strength he had revealed was too great. The fusion of life and annihilation had gone beyond what was reasonable for this competition. It was unfair to the spirit of the battle for the throne. After this match, there would undoubtedly be trouble if he tried to fight alongside Nihil again. This is unfair. Jinongwa roared. In the next instant, dark golden light burst from him, forming a massive vortex. No longer evading, he charged headlong toward Tang San and Nihil. Under Tang San's direct infusion of energy, the scourged dragon now appeared to be encased in a layer of purple crystal. Though still fearsome in appearance, he gleamed with dazzling brilliance. It felt as if he had reached the absolute pinnacle of his existence, and if he took just one more step, one tiny little step, he could become an emperor. Of course, he also understood that taking that step would mean death. Even so, as Jinongwa's vortex approached, Nihil showed no fear. He leapt forward, the massive shadow of annihilation colliding head-on with the vortex. Jinongwa's hulking form was blasted backward, flipping through the air. Nihil could initially match him in sheer strength all by himself. Now with Tang San's support, his power was simply overwhelming. That single clash left Jinongwa feeling as if every bone in his body had shattered. And more terrifying still was the annihilation energy invading his body. 2 against 1, he simply had no chance. He took out a blue gold fruit, not the 11th order one from the auction but a 10th order one, and roared in frustration. I concede, but this is unfair. 2 against 1. How is this the battle for the throne? If I could bring a partner, who the hell could stop us? Nihil halted his pursuit. Atop his, Tang San spread his arms wide and called out, "Perhaps you feel that this is unfair, Lord Jin. But these are the rules set by the ancestral court, the will of the emperors. We merely follow that will. I even checked last time, and everything I've done is within the rules." From the sky, the undying demon emperor looked down at Tang San, who was standing casually atop the dragon, his face the picture of innocence. The emperor couldn't help but feel exasperated. The boy had spoken so loudly it seemed like he wanted to be heard from Skytree City. Under so many scrutinizing eyes, it was impossible for the emperors to go back on their own rules. Jinongwa, still in his bloodthirsty state and with a clouded mind, grew even angrier at Tang San's innocent words. Even the emperors can err, and when they do, it must be corrected. What you're doing is unfair to all the contestants. This must change or we'll all withdraw. Tang San chuckled. Ah, you promise? That would be great. If enough of you drop out, won't I automatically win a seat? Enough. The undying demon emperor descended, his expression stern as could be. Fairness is for the Ancestral Court's council to decide. In today's match, Jin Miaolin of the Blue Gold Tree clan wins. Now return to your pavilions. As he spoke, he swept his hand, and his vast power sent Tang San, the Scourge Dragon, and Jin Ongwa all flying back toward the edges of the arena. The might of an emperor was undeniable. In midair, Tang San recalled Nihil into his pocket dimension. He himself landed quietly and made his way toward his VIP pavilion. Jin Ongwa, helpless, shrank back to human form and returned to his own pavilion. The stands were abuzz with noise. He won. The Amethystan warrior just won another match. Unbelievable. It was indeed hard to believe, but the fact was he had won. And compared to the combined might of Jin Miaolin and the Scourge Dragon, even Jin Ongwa, the finest behemoth alive apart from the clan's emperor, had seemed powerless. It was as if he were facing an emperor. And truly, with Tang San and Nihil working together at full strength, even with Tang San drawing solely on his Jin Miaolin powers, they could rival an emperor. The path of life and annihilation was an incredibly potent combination. With 2 wins from 2 matches, Tang San's points now matched those of Radiant Dragon King Su Yu, and his next opponent would be Su Yu himself. As promised, Su Yu was to concede, meaning Tang San would then be at the top of the rankings. It seems we must discuss this carefully. I don't know about you, but I did not expect such a development. The Celestial Fox Demon Emperor's voice sounded in the minds of all the emperors. Meanwhile, repairs were underway. The arena had been damaged far too severely and needed time to be restored. The Sunborn Nymph Emperor, overseeing the Solstice Empire's side, was communicating with Tang San through divine sense. Why make such a spectacle? You won, wasn't that enough? You've now disrupted the fairness of the contest. This can't be allowed to continue, the Sunborn Nymph Emperor said, clearly annoyed. Tang San smiled wryly. Your Majesty, if I said I didn't know I could do that until today's experiment, would you believe me? I honestly didn't expect this outcome, and I didn't break any rules. The Ancestral Court permitted anything acquired in the auction, didn't they? Surely the Council can't go back on its own rules now? You must help me argue for that. After all, I'm on your team. His words were half true. While he had been sure his path of life and annihilation could enhance the Scourge Dragon's power, he hadn't expected that the dragon would in turn amplify his life deprivation domain, creating a mutual cycle of reinforcement that had pushed their combined power to Emperor level, and by then it was too late to conceal it. I understand, the Sunborn Nymph Emperor replied, exasperated. He did believe Tang San. Such an outcome was indeed not something that could be predicted just like that. Ending communication, Tang San returned to his chamber and closed his eyes to rest. The elders of the Blue Gold Tree clan were overjoyed at his string of victories, but they too sensed something amiss. Tang San's pairing with the Scourge Dragon had proven so dominant that even Jin Ongwa couldn't stand against them, and had it been only that, then surely an emperor's position would have been his for the taking. But since that advantage came largely through the Scourge Dragon's power, it was bound to provoke a backlash from the other contestants. This was especially so given that the Empyrean Dominion had been counting on strong results from its male contestants. With this spoiler in the mix, Tang San was almost certain to claim one of the coveted spots in the finals. And if something went wrong on the female side, the Empyrean Dominion could face a disastrous loss overall. In truth, Jin Ongwa's final outcry had been a warning to the emperors. Tang San himself wasn't worried at all. Even without Nihil, he had other ways to handle his matches. But if the Ancestral Court didn't allow him to use Nihil, they would have to give him a clear explanation and compensation. As for how that decision would be made, well, he'd let the emperors of the Empyrean Dominion and the Solstice Empire battle that out. Given his earlier exchange with the Sunborn Nymph Emperor, Tang San was confident that even if he suffered as a result of this decision, it wouldn't be too bad. With 2 victories already secured, his odds of advancing from the semifinals were very high. And with Mei Gongzi doing well too, everything seemed to be on the right track. Meanwhile, the emperors of the Ancestral Court were using the break for repairs on the arena to urgently discuss the previous match. From what we just saw, this really isn't fair. Jin Miaolin and the Scourge Dragon together are equivalent to 2 great demon kings combined, and their attributes amplify each other. making them even stronger. Together, they can properly cross the threshold to the emperor level. Letting them keep competing simply isn't fair to the other contestants. It was the Golden Mammoth Demon Emperor who spoke. The sky-splitting Demon Emperor remained silent. It wouldn't do for him to speak out on this issue, but his close friend had no such reservations. It is indeed unfair, added the Tenebrous Demon Emperor gravely. Tang San hadn't yet faced the Tenebrous Dragon Clan's contestant, but that clash was inevitable. If the Scourge Dragon could be disqualified now, Tang San's advantage would be blunted, and it was the perfect moment for that. He had already defeated Jinongwa and Lu Fushou, so being stopped now would be greatly beneficial for the Tenebrous Dragon Clan's representative. But that's not the whole picture, the Earthshade Nymph Emperor said coolly. These were the rules set by the Ancestral Court, and Jean Mirolan has broken none of them. He's followed them exactly. What reason do we have to forbid him from using the Scourge Dragon? The decision to auction off the Scourge Dragon was your race's doing. Or you mean to tell me that you didn't take the money? The Earthshade Nymph Emperor was in no good mood. The contestant representing the Netherman Flower Clan had just lost to Mei Gongzi. Now, seeing the great demon emperors trying to gang up on a nymph contestant, she had no hesitation in voicing her support. Let's hear from everyone, the Celestial Fox Demon Emperor said, withholding his own stance for now. He then turned to the Sunborn Nymph Emperor. Sunborn, what's your view? The word of Sunborn Nymph Emperor, the Solstice Empire's strongest figure, carried a lot of weight in this debate. I agree with Earthshade, the Sunborn Nymph Emperor said evenly. The rules were set by us. If we change them now just because someone used them cleverly, who will ever trust our rules again? And more importantly, why shouldn't Jean Mirolan be allowed to claim a throne? You all know that if he ascends and remains in the Ancestral Court, it benefits all of us. The level of life energy he brings is something only the Ancestral Tree could match. It's perfectly obvious that he's the first blue gold tree in history to inherit the Ancestral Tree's full legacy. Even their previous emperor wasn't capable of what he can do. His statement was clear and firm. Full support. Hearing this, the other nymph emperors fell silent. The positions of the Sunborn and Earthshade Nymph Emperors effectively represented the Solstice Empire's stance. What do you say, Undying? The Celestial Fox Demon Emperor asked next. The Undying Demon Emperor spoke solemnly. As the referee, I witnessed their clash up close. The Sunborn Nymph Emperor is right. From a rules standpoint, we can't stop Jean Mirolan. But the synergy between his domain and the Scourge Dragon's destructive power went beyond all expectations. Their combination creates a unique cycle of life and destruction feeding each other, accelerating in strength. What we saw wasn't even their limit. But this state isn't necessarily good for them either. The longer it goes on, the greater the risk of destabilization. And if that happens, our protective barriers and even we emperors might not be able to safeguard the arena. With so many of our people here, it could be catastrophic. For their own safety and that of everyone present, I think we must impose limits. Of course, if we change the rules, we must compensate Jean Mirolan. The Celestial Fox Demon Emperor's eyes gleamed, as expected of an old fox like the Undying Demon Emperor. He had found the angle they needed to approach this, not fairness but safety. That opened the door to negotiation. He did make a great point too. The life-destruction combination was unprecedented, and its stability was called into question by the Scourge Dragon's prior madness. If the dragon lost control and that tremendous energy went haywire, how many would die? Wise words, fellow Undying. Safety must be our priority, said the Celestial Fox Demon Emperor. I agree, the Sky-Splitting Demon Emperor said quietly. I agree too, the Tenebrous Demon Emperor added at once. Safety matters most. I agree, echoed the Crystal Phoenix Demon Emperor, ever aligned with his granduncle. The White Tiger Demon Emperor sneered inwardly. You agree? That's the man your daughter loves. I agree, said the Golden Mammoth Demon Emperor. Among the 8 great Demon Emperors, only the White Tiger Demon Emperor and the Sword Saint Demon Emperor had yet to speak. The Celestial Fox Demon Emperor's divine sense turned to the White Tiger Demon Emperor, seeking his stance. I reserve my opinion, said the latter blandly. The Empyrean Dominion's interests were united. Even knowing Jean Mirolan was Tang San, He couldn't openly oppose this without revealing their bond. All he could do was abstain. "I reserve my opinion too," said the Sword Saint Demon Emperor. Thus, of the 8 great demon emperors, 5 supported limiting Tang San, and 2 withheld judgment. The Celestial Fox Demon Emperor didn't need to state his view. The outcome was clear. The Sunborn Nymph Emperor was silent for a moment. He hadn't expected the Undying Demon Emperor to find such a persuasive reason. And it was true. If something went wrong, it could doom the entire competition. That was unacceptable to either side. "Celestial Fox Undying, I have one question. If we ban him from using the Scourge Dragon, we're effectively eliminating him despite him breaking no rules. So what compensation do you propose? Do we just give him a throne outright?" the Sunborn Nymph Emperor asked, his voice calm but carrying a note of displeasure. Even the Parasol Tree Nymph Emperor, who had always been close to the Undying Demon Emperor, held his tongue. When the 2 countries' interests collided, personal ties meant little. Duty came first.